Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council work session and special meeting of Tuesday, December 12th. And call the meeting to order. And first is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I guess you need to make a change to it.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I just want to let you folks know that during the good of the order, I will be asking for some direction regarding attorney time.
Attorney time.
Well, yeah, it's covered in the code up to an hour as far as the attorneys or counselors being able to talk to an attorney.
Oh.
And I just want to have that it gets set.
Okay,
Yeah, but that would be the good of the order.
okay.
Thank you.
If that changes the agenda,
No, yeah. Okay, so you,
my motion stands.
okay, second? We didn't have a second. Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so first we have public comment, and if you are going to make public comment, just a reminder that we're kind and respectful and try to keep it under 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Tom?
Tom Landy on PO Box 865. Hello, again.
Hi.
I was here last Tuesday and I timed out at probably the most inappropriate time in my presentation. And I'm embarrassed by that. I was trying to talk about a letter that had gone to the Cannon Beach Gazette dealing with Angela, Karen Labat and the city. Of course, it dealt with ethics and the animal signage that was done during COVID. It was a very derogatory letter. The city did not respond to it as best I could tell. Maybe that was intentional because, you know, you got an irate contractor with a chip on his shoulder, making accusations against the city and her. And it may be that you just said, we're not going to deal with that. And that's fine. That's a management decision. And of course, you could have decided, hell no, we're going to respond and we're going to, you know, meet him head on just as with equal force. A management decision. And I know we've got a lot of issues before the city right now that are very imperative and very volatile. But I don't know that we got a lot of management tools to help you deal with it. Where I'm kind of headed with, you know, there's a lot of information flying back and forth. You don't know where anybody stands on it other than everybody's upset. And it's being done on email and Facebook and, you know, good grief. These strings go on and on and on. You don't know where everybody's coming from, but, you know, everybody's upset. You don't know where the city stands. You know, and maybe we need to figure out a way to get maybe not a vote, but a consensus of here's what the opinions are. And I'd just like to suggest maybe, you know, just for your thoughts, maybe getting a consumer survey software that will allow you to poll the citizenry and find out where they stand on these things. You know, right now it would be useful, but it may be too little and, you know, too late. But anyway, food for thought may be something you consider. It
Okay.
may be helpful to find out where the populace stands.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Yeah.
Stuart Warman, P.O. Box 778, Cannon Beach. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, thanks for letting me speak tonight. I have a request. could we have a public comment period like this one at the beginning of the design review board meetings and at the planning commission meetings? I brought this idea to the DRB at their meeting last evening, and they seemed open to it. City staff there also said they were willing to look into it. We already have public comment periods at the beginning of the regular city council meetings and work sessions, at the Parks and Community Services Committee meetings, and at the Public Works Committee meetings. It seems reasonable to have them for the DRB and Planning Commission meetings as well. Please consider supporting this opportunity for more public involvement in our community for the new year and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Anybody else in the audience? Is there anyone online that would like to make public comment? If you would raise your hand, please. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public comment and move to our discussion items. And the first item on the agenda is the Chamber of Commerce quarterly report. Bruce, you want to
No, it just,
start us off, or looks like they're ready?
they look like they're ready, they're eager.
Good evening.
Well, you ready for another 2-hour session? I'm, so. Um. I included in the packet this time the history section again. As a reminder, I think that's good information to provide. Everybody to know how the DMO program began and how it came about and why it exists. I won't go through that again for you all, but it's there. And if you have any questions, I'm of course always willing to answer those.
Anybody have any questions on the DMO? Okay. And
I had a question. And maybe you're going to get into this, but you were talking about it's on the slide that says 2019 negotiation of the DMO contract. And it said these efforts began with a third-party audit of funding from the TLRT. Who did the audit?
It was the same audit company that you guys use because you guys called for the audit and we split the cost of that.
Okay.
And they came down and went through all the books. Our practice at that time was still cash based and all was through one account. And so all that money went into one account and came out of one account. And so they recommended switching to, well, they wanted us to switch to an accrual based system, which is far beyond what we're capable of doing or need to do. But we did separate those bank accounts. So they're actually separate bank accounts in separate banks. So we keep all of those funds completely separate until we need to reimburse back to the operating fund that is in the general account from ours. So it just moves as we need it. So we spend what we need for the programs and then we reimburse back from the DMO funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Clean that up and follow their advice as best we could,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
switching to a whole different accounting system.
it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. The next item on our list is the Clarity of Place, the balance program. I want to give you an update on where we're at. Where did that go? We're in the gathering data portion of this. And then we will begin scheduling out the next steps once we get all that data put together so they can put it into their system. The sheet included here is the data that they requested us to help gather. So I would ask you, the city, if you have, you can see there's a lot of things from the city on here. If you can provide that for us, that would make all of our jobs a little easier. So anything you can provide that we can plug into the system would be helpful. We're working really hard to put all that in from our end and gather up all the performance data and capacity data as well. So we're working really hard to get that data so we can get the ball rolling forward.
Will we see that data once you have it?
Oh, I hope that you'll be involved in the process all along the way. Not just you and us, but the community, the residents, really everybody. On our list, if that's all the questions you have about clarity of place,
Pretty okay?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll let Sierra take the Winter Waters program.
Cool. So Winter Waters is an event that we are sponsoring, and it is put on by a gal that is based out of the Wheeler Garibaldi area, and she works with Oregon Seaweed, and she works with the seaweed farm down in Garibaldi. And she partners with this gal who is based in Portland, who also works in the Sea Fair Life. And last year they came together and started this business that supports Oregon seaweed. And it's essentially, it's a regional wide event where they help restaurants connect with local seafair and seaweed, to ask chefs when they have some downtime in February, not during the summer when they're really busy, to kind of come up with a culinary creation that could be creative and fun and kind of let chefs flex their culinary experience. And so this year they also partnered with OCVA, the Oregon Coast Visitors Association, and they came to us to ask if we would like to see something like this in our town. And we thought it was a really good opportunity to have some fun and see if our chefs would be involved. So we went around and asked some of our local restaurants to see if they would want to host an event or a special menu item for the month of February. And we saw some interest, which made us want to sponsor the event. So we are right now in the stage of collaborating with these two gals who run Winter Waters, and connecting them with our restaurants to see what kind of special menu items and events they can come up with in February. So again, not only does this let our chefs again kind of have some fun when they have downtime in our off season, but it also is hopefully going to drive some visitors here that are curious about seaweed and about what these chefs are going to be able to do or what these events can be. So we're really excited, and also to educate folks on where seaweed comes from and how it grows and what it does for our oceans and how it's healthy and very sustainable, and a lot of different factors. So we're really excited to be sponsoring this event. And again, we're kind of in the process of getting who wants to commit to this event. We're getting a lot of traction and excitement. So you'll be seeing over the next few months this come to fruition, and us kind of like announcing with the Winter Waters crew who's going to have a special menu item and events. So like I said, we're really excited, and we'll be sponsoring this event.
Did you bring us any samples?
I did not, no. However, I can get you some.
And as you may realize, January and February are our slowest months of the year for visitation. So we felt this tied in really well with what the community needs as far as helping our businesses in off season.
And by sponsoring this, you're putting money into this program?
Yeah. So essentially, if a town or a DMO sponsors this, then they're focusing on having events and special menu items in Cannon Beach. There will also be, like, I think Astoria sponsoring a little bit, and down in Newport sponsoring a little bit, and a little bit in the Portland metro area sponsoring a little bit. So each sponsorship is focused on putting efforts in that city. And so depending on your tier of sponsorship would depend on how much of that effort, right, and time and marketing that goes behind putting an event like this together. And so with our tier of sponsorship, we have the potential to have 3 big culinary dinner events and up to 15 or more special menu items. So again, it kind of accounts for the time of connecting the folks who are representing the seaweed and the Winter Waters with our local restaurants, getting those details hashed out. And then also a really cool thing about the program is with them creating a special menu item or event, they are asked to donate 10% of those profits to the Oregon Seaweed nonprofit. So we're excited for that as well, that it will be a benefit to multiple sources.
And the cost of this?
So our sponsorship level, you'll see it in the budget at the back there, but we sponsored it for $8,000,
Or,
$8,000.
okay. That's in the budget that we have?
I believe so.
Is that under
It'll be
and
under,
sponsorships?
yes, sir.
Says 15,000.
Yeah, see what she's going.
Say something?
Well, I just say event sponsorships, it says event sponsorships 15,000. I don't see an 8,000 in this.
Included in the 15.
Correct. Yeah. So right now we've used 14,000. You'll see that in the second column to the right of the 15. We've
Mhm.
used the 14, so that's the actual, and the 15 is just like the budget. So then you'll see the other 1,000 on the far right that we haven't used yet.
What's the remaining budget for that?
The one,
48 of the 14,000 is this program?
yeah, and then the $5,000 is last year, Jim was approached by ACFA again and Oregon Rides for the Ride the Wave dirt
The dirt wave.
Ride the Dirt Wave. It's a mountain bike race series that there's one here at the Colucci Creek, which is in between Seaside and here in Canton. There's one down in Newport and there's one down in south, very far south. Can't think of it. Anyways, yeah, it's a 3-part series race, and so it focuses on the race efforts here. And last year was extremely successful and was like 8 spots away from selling out, and it was up to 100 racers. And so that's what the other 5,000 is. And I believe we've committed to 3 years. So we did last year, we'll do this coming year, 2024, and then 2025. And we'll see we're analyzing the success of the event and kind of how that, plays back into our community. And if we'll decide if we want to continue sponsoring that, or if that event is going to be able to hold its own after the 3rd year.
And what date is that event?
Yeah, so right now, it's in the process of being scheduled with Nuveen. So Nuveen Natural Capital is who manages the Lewis and Clark Timberlands on that side. So we're in the process of communicating with them to make sure that those dates are going to be good to go. But their prospective dates is June 8th and 9th.
Any other questions? Seaweed? Okay, thank you.
I also wanted to update you on the Travel Oregon grant. I just want to let you know that we did not receive our grant for the wheelchair program, which we're very disappointed that we weren't able to get that grant and then move forward with installing the whole system that we had planned for that. That's still a pretty important thing for our community. And we'll keep our eye out for another grant or another way that we can maybe incrementally help in that area. But it's a very strong passion of our staff that we get back up and running with that. A lot of communities up and down the coast are promoting themselves as wheelchair accessible, and unfortunately we don't have that capability at all. Get back into it as quick as can.
Did they give you any feedback on the grant that you could use to resubmit it in the future?
Well, this is a one-time process through those. We didn't get this grant, and it's a 2-year grant, so it's not going to be open again. We'll keep an eye out for whatever grants are available, because we always do that anyway.
Travel Oregon doesn't give out a yearly grant or a bi-yearly grant or anything.
No, there are specific ones, but those are for specific reasons. This one fit the plan of the project that we had hoped, and so we were really into that. If you look through all the list of the people that were awarded, there's several places that were doing accessibility grants.
Right.
Like we were, so yeah, I'm not real sure. It was kind of a form letter of why we They didn't award us the grant. So
It's too bad.
This was for the material that went down the beach so that wheelchairs could,
it really was a
or accessible.
three-tiered process. You wanna
Yeah,
have it real quick?
so it was like the three-part initiative that was at the kind of end of the marketing presentation last time we were here. And the first part was Wheel the World, which was essentially this company that comes in and kind of observes the accessibility levels that either a restaurant or accommodation or a Cola State Park or that our beaches are. And then the second one was putting in lockers near the chamber and wheelchairs as well. And then the third part, yes, was the Moby mats that go out on the beach.
But Travel Oregon isn't like an organization that you could ever like apply for a grant for welcoming woman at Nakus or something like that. It's not, doesn't do things like that.
Grants from Travel Oregon are usually designated for a purpose. Like they'll say, we have X amount of money and we want to open it up for a purpose. The last grant we got was, I forget the word we used, but we actually
Accessibility, I think, was.
we actually used it to hire Sierra.
Oh,
And we got that grant, which allowed us to do it before the next fiscal year. Because we had planned to hire this fiscal year, but since we got the grant last year, we were able to hire her early. So it worked out. It was expansion. I forget what the word they used for it, but it was for hiring staff and getting back to normal from COVID, which helped us out. And then we thought we would move on to this one because this grant opportunity became open this year. I suspect they'll have another grant opportunity in next year or the year after. But they'll typically have a direction of where they want those grant funds to go. And so we see if that matches with our community and if we can determine what would work and it fits into what we can do, then we'll apply for that grant.
Okay.
yeah, the last year they were emphasizing accessibility, so it's kind of a surprise that you didn't get funded.
Yeah, I was surprised by it too.
Oh,
As well as inclusion kinds of things.
well, you would think it fit right in. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so the last phase, if that's all the questions you have, is the finance. This is just our overview of the finances for the DMO or for the marketing efforts. It doesn't include the Visitor Information Center, which is a separate that I can bring to you. This was the piece that was missing of the last presentation, so I thought that you might want to see this and go over that. If you had any questions about what's on here and
Yes, I'll ask, so at the top, you've got DMO operations account, $150,000. Not sure where that fits with everything
so
else.
the operations account is the funds that we have chamber account to pay for the marketing efforts, DMO efforts during a quarter. At the end of the quarter, we tally that up and we reimburse it back out of the DMO funds from the other bank account.
Okay,
That way the operating budget and the DMO funds don't mix. This was essentially the process that was used even before before we had the DMO money. When the city was paying for the visitor center, we would tally that all up, submit a quarterly report to the city for our funding to cover those expenses. So it's the same system, just different funding.
So in that first block, the top one, Cannon Beach, 23, 24, what time period do the actual numbers cover? Right here at the very top, it says actual. And then there's nothing filled in underneath it. And
Yeah, there's nothing filled in on this because we just received the first quarter check. It's not in this.
here it says 22, 23. So it looks like it is. It looks,
That's a typo.
oh, so it should say 23, 24. Okay.
Yeah, as a cash-based system, we haven't received that check until this month. So it won't be in the accounting system until the following month.
Yeah, I understand that now that I know that it's 23, 24, because I was confused. Okay, and why is there only $300,000
This is
budgeted for 23, 24?
This is the marketing budget. Doesn't include the visitor center.
Okay.
So do you have a budget that includes all of the DMO contract?
Yeah, I can pull that together.
Do you have to customize these
Because it's,
out of your own?
because it's different buckets of money, they're separated in our accounting system as well. I do this for working budget for us to see where each item is at, because just looking at our financial budget, we only have the categories. So this breaks it down into more detail for us to make sure we're sticking to the budget of our budget items.
So at the very bottom of on the second page, you have the total,
Mhm.
$300,000.
Yep.
But that doesn't equal the sum of all the marketing costs. Unless I'm just adding up the wrong things.
So in the left-hand column where it says the $300,000, that's the budget, says the estimated, right? And then the next column that says 117, that's just what we've spent so far out of the 300,000. And then so that would leave the 150 left.
Okay,
Add up all the
I,
items
did.
and it didn't add up to 300?
it didn't, but I don't know if I'm adding up the right things. I might be leaving.
It would be all the boldface totals.
Right. Correct.
170, 225. Yeah, it doesn't for me, but my total is 201,415. And this is 300,000. So I don't know where the other nuts. Hmm?
It adds up correctly.
So what
I
are
mean,
you
I just did it in
including?
my head, so.
I know,
Make it
but what are you
right.
including? Are you including these things too up here?
Yeah, it's an Excel spreadsheet. So
This,
Well,
and this. The 29.
okay, maybe I left out the 29. I don't know.
the 2 pages of the formatting printing error, we'll get that onto 1 page from now on. So it's easier to see.
Still isn't for me, so maybe it's something else. Still get 201.
Okay, just a random thing while we're adding.
Be checker.
Under paid media, you've got social media and social manager at $4,000. Is that
So, but
paid media or this?
yeah, so the social manager, that was the gal who was kind of managing the Facebook and Instagram before I was hired, just off of contract and she'd also do the visitor newsletter. And so she only helped us out a little bit and
So some contracted services, not paid media necessarily.
yeah, so moving forward, we'll definitely put that into a different subcategory.
110.
Have plans for content creation? I noticed you got 22,000 budgeted and nothing spent. Is that website or what's the plan with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So last month, it's December, so in November, I went to a travel writer conference and was able to meet a lot of travel writers that write for a lot of the regional publications. And essentially just finding a little bit out about folks and what they do and kind of if they would be a good fit for Cannon Beach. And I did meet a handful of folks who write about a wide variety of things that well, whether it's art or fine dining or events or outdoor or peace and wellness, all sorts of different things. So I'm able to kind of observe like these folks and see if, again, if they would be a good fit, whether it's working directly with us and if it would be content to live on our website or content that would be for a publication or like editorial style, right? So where I see this coming into play is especially for the Winter Waters event coming up in February, I would like, as well as the marketing that is going to be behind on the Winter Water side, I think it would be good for us to have some of our own Cannon Beach content behind that event. I also think in March that there might be some good opportunities for some of this, and we're kind of still going through the marketing committee is still figuring out what exactly they want that to be, but we think that there's opportunities again to talk about whether it's like whale watching or again visiting in the off season, in the magic season, kind of what that could look like.
Where do you expect your expenses will come in for that $22,000?
Yeah, so a lot of that, right, for folks' time to, whether it's write a piece or be content creation for social media videos, some of that will also probably cover their travel or the resources around what they're writing about, right? So if we're like, come here and talk about the breweries, right? It's standard that we would essentially provide them with those resources that they would need to write that piece. So it would be whatever contract we work out with these folks, but depending on how the contract works out, sometimes that is like standard to include those.
So are you saying you'd buy you'd pay for their travel to come here and you'd pay for their meals if they were doing a story about fine dining? Boy, nobody ever did that for me when I was writing.
Again, sometimes it depends with the negotiation with folks. And again, if they are writing for another magazine and they just want to come to Cannon Beach, that's different versus us saying, hey, come to Cannon Beach and write specifically for us. Those are two different things, and those costs and the contracts negotiations are two very different things as well. So again, it would kind of depend on who they are, if they're writing for a different publication or if they're writing specifically for us, or if they're partnered or sponsored by another brand, or if it's like Aqua or something like that.
So if they're writing specifically for you, then they would have to figure out how to place that story in patient of some kind.
Sure, it'd be that, and also I'm looking at it in terms of content that would live on our website as well.
Okay.
So I would hope to kind of have a 2-in-1 for any sort of what we would call like a media stay if someone came to write.
Yeah, and that also could pertain to if we ask Verde Media or any of our contractors to go above and beyond what we've contracted for, then that would come out of that too, because they're creating more than what we've agreed to. So it's pretty important that we have a set amount of funding for those efforts that we need to complete the marketing. There is only one person. It's not, she can't do it all.
I'm trying hard.
She's doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. Gonna need help too.
Tim, under your numbers, I'm back on that. Under 62464, there's no total there. That may be where the discrepancy was.
And when I did it in my head, I took those numbers. So that was
Yeah.
in my head.
See, I didn't use those. I only used your bold ones. The paid media, you have no total. And that's why my numbers came out way different than yours.
Okay. We'll,
There's two places where I think you probably want totals.
no, these are all the same.
None of it, there's not like the totals. Like,
Right.
So when you get that, will you send that?
Get it right back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Expect it later this week.
Good job.
That was probably my fault, as when I got this, I moved a handful of stuff around, so I might have deleted some columns. So yeah, we'll get that back in there.
So I just get nervous when stuff doesn't add up.
Understandable.
I get nervous too.
And then under marketing services, you've also got marketing campaign, 13,000 with nothing spent. It seems a little generic. What's the marketing campaign cover?
Yeah, so before I got hired, right, that's when the chamber hired Birdie Media, because they weren't sure if they were gonna be able to hire me early with the grant, like Jim explained earlier. And so they contracted Birdie Media out, and that was out of last year's budget. And so this year, just out of precautionary, if we needed more content from Birdie Media around that campaign, we just budgeted that, again, just kind of as a safety fallback, just in case.
So that'll be reallocated somewhere else. It's maybe not something you're going to need. And so we're not working with Birdie anymore, is that,
We still are. A little bit.
okay?
They've really kind of fulfilled the contract, right?
Yeah, they came this fall, made a lot of content, and so they're in the process of delivering that content.
But you still have to pay them for something.
We've already, so again, they were in the budget for last year for the whole entire contract of variables, and that money was able to kind of stretch a little bit into this year. And so they have been paid their full contract amount, but they are still delivering some of those deliverables.
Okay.
I'm curious, with some of the marketing efforts you mentioned, back here, for 2023, you said, it says to bring marketing efforts back online to promote stewardship and responsible visitation to Cannon Beach. And then, of course, you have your budget. I'm wondering, how do you measure your success? I mean, how do you measure that tourists are more involved in stewardship, for instance, than say in previous years? How do you measure what success and what is success to you in terms of this budget?
I don't really see that as apples to oranges. If we're getting better visitors that are coming here and being respectful.
How do you know that?
To the budget?
How do you know?
We know that. That's a very good question. We haven't really, I mean, our messaging is driving that more. It's with any advertising, it's hard to. That is a difficult process to do. I hope that our messaging is going out through the social media channels and we're directing it towards people that are concerned and care about the environment and the place they come to visit. We're seeing a trend in all and to that direction, you know. I think we're right at the beginning of that. So seeing the return on investment currently, I don't know that we've made the full investment to see the return. We're driving in that direction now.
But how will you know when you have made it?
We'll have nicer visitors. I don't know that we've developed the way to determine that.
Okay,
But
I'd even be fine just seeing examples of the content that you're referring to that would be drawing that kind of visitor.
yeah,
Sure. I mean, it comes down to as simple as I've made a few posts that even this fall about the elk, and just simple as the messaging of like, yes, the elk are beautiful and they're majestic and it's really cool to see them, especially if you sing them for the first time. However, they are still wild animals, so please respect them as so. And here's some here's some guidelines for some safe viewing distances, right? There's been a handful of hotels and as well as our social platforms that have spread messaging like that. And same thing is, kind of partnering with HRAP and saying like, there are living things right here on the rocks when the tides are low. So please watch where you step and be mindful that these things are alive. So I think in terms of being able to measure, I think a lot of it is going to come down to some observation, right? Like are HRAP seeing folks take in that information and respect the wildlife, right? Are we seeing folks maybe be more responsible for if they're leaving trash on the beach or not, or maybe taking the initiative and picking up a piece of trash that they weren't the ones to leave? I think that's a really good question that you bring up. And I think it could be a good opportunity to maybe develop a survey, right, at the end of our busy season, to ask maybe our hotel partners or our visitors, how was your experience in town? And maybe what was the attitude of visitors, or kind of, how were they to you? Were they kind? Were they frustrated? So I think that could be used in again, kind of measuring, right? If we're bringing in folks who are going to be more kind. And so I think we would see kind of that messaging kind of come to fruition, right? So I think maybe that could be an option.
There might be something you need to think about is how you measure this, because it's a lot of money and we'd like to make sure that it's being spent so that we do get kinder and gentler visitors.
Yeah, I think it's great messaging, the elk messaging and the haystack rock messaging, but I don't see any evidence myself that we have nicer visitors this year than any other year, or, that I don't. Yeah,
And that's not something that's gonna happen that next year, everyone is gonna be the nicest person we ever met. And I don't know if that's ever gonna be reality, right? There's always gonna be people who are gonna be having bad days or who are frustrated with their parking spot that they get in town. So I think we're always gonna have folks who, I would like to say, are maybe a little cactusy, right? When they come into town. But again, just like with anything, it's gonna be not terribly slow, but it's gonna be a gradual thing as messages and trends like pick up. And as a lot of folks, I feel like know these days that places are short staffed. And so that you have to be patient. It kind of is what it is. And if you don't come with patience, then maybe your service might not be good, right? And so I think a lot of folks in the past few years have realized that. Again, that places, maybe if it's like I said, again, at a restaurant, the court staff, so folks are having, again, more of that patience, but it's not gonna be that our messaging that we're putting out right now that folks are gonna like instantly get it in next year, again, that everyone's just gonna be again, the most kind as much as we would want that.
And the other fact is if we don't put this messaging out, we're not encouraging anyone to behave better or different or respect our community. So as long as we continue to do this, it will have an effect. How to measure that effect is a whole nother question that we need to delve into and find a way to be able to show that. But if we didn't, say be safe around the elk or don't step on the animals at the rock, then we're not promoting those good messages to anyone.
Mhm.
And they'll just come and do what people always do if they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, well, I think you should definitely promote them. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I question whether it changes behavior or not. I just don't know.
Well, if it changes one person, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, we're mainly talking social media here. Is that when you're talking about messaging, is that?
Mainly social media and our visitor newsletter.
It will also transition through onto our website
Mhm.
and our messaging as a whole. If somebody finds something about Cannon Beach, we want them to come here and respect all of Cannon Beach, love it the way we love it. It really goes back to love it like a local. We're just transitioning it to the next iteration and encouraging people to not only be respectful and love it like a local, but help us take care of it. Pass it on to the next generation.
How many social media posts do you think are kind of what you're talking about, promoting a stewardship message, and how many of them are pretty pictures?
Sure, yeah, so good question. Right now, I don't have the exact ratio number. A standard that is kind of an industry standard and definitely what I'm aiming our content towards is of 100% of the social media posts that you make, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, or whatever social media platform you use, is that 70% should be informational. Okay, and then 20% should be pretty picture. Here's a dog enjoying the beach, like it's ice cream cone, yeah, inspiration. And the last one should be here's why you should come to Cannon Beach, or something that's maybe a little bit more on the promotional side.
You think you're anywhere near that right now?
Working towards it. Where do you think we're at with it right now?
What's that?
Do you think we're close to that right now, or working?
I mostly see pretty pictures. But I'm not tallying them.
Yeah, like I said, we're definitely working towards that, and content creation takes a lot of time to make, especially when you want to execute it correctly, and content that is going to land well and reach the people. So I'm working on it, and I'm building that archive, and as it goes on, every content that I make, right, is not the same content that I post every single day. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. But again, getting our archive of getting ready to launch that good messaging takes a little while to gather.
So your introductory materials talk a lot about how destination marketing has moved towards destination management. Are there some areas in here you really see where you're doing that destination management?
In this budget? No, this is the marketing budget. And we have the visitor center in this budget. We haven't really delved into that management as of yet, but that will be the next phase of DMO work.
Just the budget in general, and I know we got a lot to do tonight, but I'd kind of like to see the whole contract dollars in one budget rather than having it be separated. Here's the marketing, and maybe we saw the other stuff last time, I don't know. But it's kind of hard to provide any kind of oversight when it's kind of bits and pieces here and there.
Okay, well, we'll make sure and provide the whole budget from now on.
That would be great. I mean, because for me, I just get very confused. You know, I end up asking a lot of questions that I wouldn't have to ask if I could see the whole thing.
My door is always open and I'm a phone call away. So if you have questions you want answered, I'm more than happy to answer them.
No, I'm talking about at the council meeting.
Oh, I know.
See.
Do you do any tabulation of visitors that come into the center? You know, to ask questions if they're, you know, kind, if they're mean or.
Do we tabulate their demeanor?
Yeah.
No.
Everybody's nice in there.
No, not every.
It's been in there once.
Just today, a gentleman came in twice complaining about the restrooms not being up to par. And we called and let everybody know that that needed to happen, but he came back to let us know again. So we do the best we can and we do it with a smile.
Thank you, Jim.
She comes back tomorrow. We're in trouble.
Call again.
Put them on the not nice list.
That's nice, yeah.
Santa won't be very happy.
Okay, any other questions? So next time we'll see the whole budget.
Mhm.
And,
And we'll give you the next.
and you're gonna send us corrected
Yes.
spreadsheet with some totals. Then Lisa's gonna add them up.
With a calculator, not in your head.
No, I write it down, old fashioned.
Yeah, I checked your work.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, keeping with our theme of numbers, we have the financial report for the fourth quarter.
Our numbers. Okay, good evening, Ms. Mayor and councilors. Tonight you have our financial report for the fourth quarter. We're wrapping up the fiscal year tonight that ended June 30, 2023. And the numbers here are our final numbers that we at year end, after June, we were busy making adjustments and preparing the financial records. So they're prepared for an audit by our auditor. And so that work goes on for a couple months, and then we give them the data to audit, because it's management's responsibility to provide them with our numbers. And then, of course, you know, Paul and his team, they come in and do their examination and go through their processes. And so I'm happy to say we're in the process of now getting the final report from them. And on January 2nd, Paul will be here to present his results of the audit. And I'm happy to say that there are no adjustments proposed by our auditor this year. I'm not sure if I've had a year where there have been, but it can happen if they find something, errors or omissions or whatnot. So what you see here in this report will be reflected in the audited statements that you get every year, you know, the document, the bound document that you get. Or you probably want it maybe online. I think you guys have been maybe not getting it in bound every year. So tonight the report is very good. I'm pleased with everything I see. So that's good news. Our cash position is very healthy. We're at $18 million at June 30, 2023. That's increased about 2.8 million from the prior year. And mostly that's due to our bond proceeds that we have for the tourism facility, Cannon Beach Elementary. That's really because we're not spending it down really fast. So it's going to be carried forward a couple of years, probably. Maybe not. Bruce, I don't know how fast the project will go once design is done. Anyway, so there's the cash position. You can see the bond balances on our issues. We owe 5.9 million still on that. And then we can go into the fund on page 3. You can see all the revenues line by line. We have a lot of lines here for detailed categories of revenues that come in. Our current fiscal year to date revenues are $7,645,036. That's way down there on line 50 under the current fiscal year to date. This is a lot of detailed information. I'm going to summarize that in a few minutes as we move the pages. General fund expenditures on page 4. You will note that all of the departments, and that's how we determine spending authority. It's by department level. So you can see the executive department, they've spent 52% of the budget. So all these departments are under budget as of the end of the year. And so the total you can see on line 22, if you add up all the departments, we spent 75% of allowable budget. So that helps the bottom line, obviously, because we didn't spend everything that we were authorized. You can see down at the bottom, line 23, we started the year with 4.5 million in fund balance. And again, I told you the number for revenues, 7.6 million. And then our expenditures total 6.8 million. So that left us a gain of 767,000 roughly, that added to our ending fund balance at year end. That of course goes to July 1. We start the year with that. So that's as well. Page 5. is, kind of the summarized revenues of the city. I always do this top 10. Reflects exactly what, you know, the major revenues of the city that are so important to us operating. And we need to keep those revenues viable.
Laura, I have a question. Why isn't the food tax among our top 10? Is that because it's in a reserve fund?
It's in a separate fund,
Okay,
just like our room tax funds, we have separate.
okay. So,
And we'll see those on.
so that's not considered revenue to the city for the general fund purposes?
Correct,
Okay.
right. It's dedicated to other purposes. And the general fund revenues are discretionary. You can spend them on anything you want.
Okay.
A surprising number
Deemed by council.
in here to me was the interest income. And I think you explained it a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you give us?
Yeah, you know the market. I mean, it's 5%, you know, interest rates are way high. And of course, the local government investment pool where we keep the majority of our funds has been returning 4.75, I think. I may have.
Opposed to 1.2 or something previously.
Yeah, I don't know. I know in previous reports I've mentioned what the interest rate was, but it's up there. And so, you know, when we have, like we have 18 million at June 30, 23, we had 18 million in the LGIP. And so that's a significant sum earning 5%. And so it's just kind of a fluke. We didn't really budget for that because we didn't know what the market was going to do. So it's just kind of. And so then it gets harder, you know, to budget in the future when you're not sure what the market's going to do. But I always try to be very conservative in that. So in our top 10, and they're all the usual suspects, some of their positions go up and down because interest income is now number 3.
Yeah, I had another question on that. The room tax is only 62.7% of the revenue when it's been in the past like 70s.
Well, in the prior year, you can see the next little table down here. It was 67.7.
Okay, but it's still lower than it has been in the past in terms of percentage.
Yeah, and that's because other things are they're gaining more ground.
Big interest in.
Putting pressure on the room tax amount. That's why, like.
I'm kind of glad to see that, frankly. I'm glad to see that it's not as high. I'm glad to see it's not as high as it used to be.
Yeah, we're not as reliant on it that
Yeah.
way. Correct. Okay. So you'll see up here on line 12, back to that same number, our total revenues are 7.6 million. The top 10 represent 6.7 million. And you know, I always say that I don't put grants in this because they're not always reliable. You don't know, you may get a grant one year, you may not. So we don't want to depend on that kind of revenue. So I don't include it in there. But that said, our grants and donation revenue at the end of this fiscal year was $915,884, which is significant. And of course, you know, I'd love to see that. But if you take that, so if you take that 6.7 million and you add the grant revenues of 915,000, you're left with, and then you add 77,000 to that, you get to 7.6 million. So you can see the effects of our top 10, 6.7 grants, 915,000, and what's left over is 77,000. And what that is, it's just very small amounts of money. Like I said, and you can see the details on page 3, but it's like farmer's market, it's HRAP, it's the smaller little monies that come into the city that represents that. So you can kind of see how your top 10 is pretty important. Okay, now moving on to the other funds of the city on page 6. Everything here, these funds, the room tax, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about that in a minute. That's those kind of 3 at the top. The building official fund is doing well. We did not hit our targeted revenue, the budget revenue. But I think I may have been a little more optimistic in my budgeting. The fund is still doing very well. The spending level was at 87% for the year. So combined with that, we still had an increase in our ending fund balance. So the building department is doing fine. Every other fund, affordable housing, we're not spending any money there, so we're accumulating funds in that. And then you can see prepared food sales tax at the bottom, right? And so I think this is a good result. We weren't sure, we did the study with Econ Northwest. We got the ballpark number of 1.76 million is what we thought we would raise from that 5% food tax. And so that was our budget, and we came in at $1,734,830.
I think that's incredible.
I think
Actually,
great.
it's so, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
1,000 short, but
Yeah, but I mean, really,
yes.
And we made that up in the first quarter.
Yes, and I'll show you too on some other, well, we could talk about it now, I guess. I don't think I have it in here.
First quarter year to year was about 35.
I have it.
yeah, I mean, it's just
5,000 more.
so close. It's incredible. It's amazing.
The first quarter was better than, yeah. So, so we're doing good in that department. Page 7, the rest of our kind of major funds have a lot of activity. RV park, recycling, all the utilities, the road fund. RV park ending fund balances increasing, recycling increasing. We're hitting our revenue targets very well. And we're not spending the full amount of the budget. Water fund, water, wastewater, and storm drain, we're just under 100% of hitting our target for those budgets and the revenue side. But it's really not having a huge impact on the bottom line. What's happening with the water fund is that has a decrease in any fund balance, but it's an intentional one because we had 410,000 of excess fund balance, if you will, that we transferred to the water reserve fund. So it's staying, within the water system. It's just being utilized for projects in the water reserve, which is where we do a lot of the infrastructure projects. So that doesn't bother me. It was a planned event. And the same is true for the storm drain. That has a decrease in the fund balance. And you can see we had transfers out of 156,000 there. That went into the storm drain reserve as well. So that's just another use. We're putting it and isolating it so that it can be used for infrastructure. The roads fund. Here we have on line 21, you'll see the budget. I estimated a 420,000 beginning fund balance, but it came in lower at 412. However, that was, we originally budgeted a 0 fund balance in the budget. But we actually ended up with 394,411, and that's because we didn't spend any of our contingency. And we didn't spend all of our, personnel, materials, capital outlay. So that's down about 18,000. That's okay too. Nothing to worry about. The debt service fund, property tax came in as expected, $868,000. The ending fund balance is fine. We don't want to carry a lot of fund balance there because that just means we are levying more tax than we need. Tourism facility renovation, you can see the beginning fund balance that includes the proceeds of the bond issue, which is being carried forward as it's not spent. The revenues are interest income. We have to do that because of arbitrage. And capital outlay, that's obviously the expenditures on Cannon Beach Elementary. And we spent $458,151 in the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. Administrative Services Fund always has a zero fund balance because we recuperate expenses from all the other funds of the city, the operating funds of the city for kind of like overhead. And you can see that overall total budget, we spent 90% of it. You can see that on line 8 at the end there. I talked about the fund balances in this box, I think almost every quarter, so I'll move on from there. This is the supplemental report on page 9. This is just showing a good comparison to the 2023 year and the 2022 year. So this, each column is a full 12 months. It's the total fiscal year to date. Comparing our the current 2023 year, 7.6 million in revenues. And our prior year, 2022, 7.2 in revenues. I think that is an improvement. And then room tax. It's doing well, page 10. Our budget was 5.5 million. And we brought in 5.8 million. So that's good. You can see it's softening a little bit compared to the prior year. In 2022, we collected 5.9 million in room tax. And 2023, 5.8 million. Kind of getting the feel that it's softening a little bit. And that's why we kept the budget for 2023 at 5.5 million. And we also budgeted our current year at 5.5 million, just to make sure that we're not being too enthusiastic.
Okay.
Page 11, this is just showing the history back to 2019, the difference in revenue streams, hotels versus short-term rentals. You see the majority obviously is hotel tax. See, obviously the 5.8 million there on line 3 on the grand total. Page 12, this is by fund, the general fund, room tax. You can see by quarter each budget and what we've collected. So that number will match up on the actual line. If you added up all those individual line items in the detailed revenues, you would come up with 4.7, and that's what our top 10 should say too. Yeah, 4.795. So that agrees. And then you get the grand total at the bottom. Tourism and Arts Fund on page 13. Revenues that came in are $508,605 from room tax. And we dispersed $273,204 to the 11 events that you see on the margin there, all listed out. And the ending fund balance is $1,010,778. So we're accumulating a bit of money in this fund. But anyway, okay, and then on page 14, it's always interesting to see what we've reported or what we've spent in fixed assets. So fiscal year 2023, you can see all the projects that were completed. There's 18 of them. That's infrastructure, equipment, improvements to our emergency management system. And that's 1.79 million. And it's about the same spending as last year where we spent 1.8 million. And some of those same projects are on the 2022 are our 2023 list has some of the same. Continuing those projects. Takes more than 1 year to build those things. If you guys have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? No. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Uh-huh.
Okay, next on our discussion list is the lifeguard program.
Sir, yeah. I'm just here to look good. He's doing it all.
Good.
You're here.
Where do you want me to stand?
Where do you want to stand?
Whatever. I might start wandering, who knows?
Okay.
All right, well, you know who I am, Jason Smith, Deputy Fire Chief, as well as the head lifeguard for lifeguards last season. My beautiful assistant over here.
Not me.
So we're gonna be talking about the lifeguard program proposal. You guys all had the proposal sent to you. So this PowerPoint will just kind of build on that with some pictures and some additional information. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, and I'll myself or Chief will be able to answer. So what we're going to talk about is just a quick history. Again, you had a chance to review it. We do a 2023 recap to make sure that we capture what we accomplished this last season. Lifeguard program recommendations, some of the things that I saw as the manager of the program this last year that I would like to see change moving forward. And then we'll end it with the program proposal from the fire district. So we've had lifeguards on the beach since 1938. It started out as a volunteer on the beach 7 days a week, just keeping the beach safe. He was funded by donations from little jars around the town. Fast forward to today, it's a funded position or a funded program under the police department. In 2022, the fire district entered in the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement with the city to start helping augment staffing of the lifeguards. This did two things. One, it provided our volunteers an opportunity for some financial gain during the summertime. But then what it really did was improve interoperability. It used to be that we would respond to water rescues and not have any idea who was in the water, what their capabilities were, what their name was, how to communicate with them. We would show up and we would do our best. This last year, 2023, when we took over management, they're operating on our frequencies. We were getting notified because we scanned the radios. We were knowing that there was a rescue potential that was occurring before it even got toned out. So we were already moving towards the beach by the time they went on the radio and said that we had a water rescue. So moving forward, I think this really helped us a lot and really ensured that we had adequate beach coverage. Again, last season, we made 504 contacts, and those were what was documented on our sheet. It was much higher than that, much higher. But what I want to focus on is education. We talked to 211 people on the beach, more than that, but documented 211 people of how to stay safe around the water, how to read the water, how to be, enjoy it without getting hurt. And then preventions were, you were in a rip current, you've been in the water way too long, you don't have the right stuff on. And then the 10 rescues. And so the 10 rescues totaling 21 people removed from the ocean by lifeguards. And I think the most important part of that is only one person got transported in an ambulance, and that was just precaution. So it was very effective. We did our job. We completed the mission that was in front of us. So taking over the management this last year, it was a lot of work on my end, making sure that it was run appropriately and that the people were taken care of. But what I saw, these are the three big items that I took away from it, was that it's no longer a summertime gig. We have people here year round. It can't just be focused on June or Memorial Day, Labor Day. It doesn't work anymore. We're getting multiple fatalities before that. We're getting rescues after that. I think we've had 5 or 6 water rescues since we've ended lifeguard season, and 2 of them were on Cannon Beach proper. So we are continuing to run water rescues even when we don't have a lifeguard. The other thing is the equipment that lifeguards are using needs to be replaced, needs to be updated. It's in dire need of some TLC. And then the bigger thing of it all is staffing and management model needs to be changed. Again, we can't look at it as a summertime job anymore because it's not. It needs to be adapted and adjusted appropriately. So I'm going to touch on those key points. So expanding the season. We have roughly 750,000 visitors that come to Cannon Beach, and I would say a lot of those people touch our sand, go to our beach. And it's not just in the summertime. It's all the time. I mean, today was a beautiful day on the beach. There was a ton of surfers in the water. Knock on wood, we didn't get any water rescues, but the swell was down, but we have king tides this week. So we have the high potential for water rescues, even though we're in winter months, we're off season. They just had last king tides. Thankfully, it wasn't us, but they've had some fatalities this season from children in particularly getting swept out by king tides. So it is a high threat for us. And we've had people rolled by logs and broken ankles and broken arms, and we've had to go get them out of the waters. But thankfully they didn't get swept out. And I mean, you just look at videos, and there's a ton of videos of people getting swept out or getting hit by waves, especially Gower. So we have high potential for not just wintertime rescues, but all year round. And I kind of already beat that up, but it's not a summertime job anymore. We can't just focus on teachers and students. It's very difficult for us to say, come be a lifeguard on your summer break, and that be what we're counting on. That's our sole hiring model right now, is students and teachers, people that are off season from whatever their commitment is. So it doesn't lend to a very good model when it comes to staffing. It's not reliable. I had 17 lifeguards on the roster. Well, a majority of them could only work on the weekends. So I had a lot of people on the weekends, which was great. But then during the weekday, it was a struggle. I was having to go down the beach to cover. We were having to augment staffing to try and get people down there. So it's going to be a struggle for us. But if we solely look at just teachers and students and hope that they're interested in working on their summer break, it lends itself to being a difficult thing when it comes to staffing. It also leads to a later start and an early end. Again, we have to wait until they get out of school before they can even train to become competent in the water as a lifeguard. So even though maybe they're out of school the first week of June, they're not going to be on the beach as a lifeguard until maybe July. It may take that long depending on their capabilities. And so there is a lead time. If they're able, I would like for them to come in before the season starts and do some onboard training before the season begins. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for this season. That's why we're here now talking to you, is we want to get this program going sooner rather than later. That way we can stay ahead of the curve and we're not rushing to try and get people hired, get people interested in the program. We can get out and really start being noticed as a program. But yeah, commitments in school and what have you makes it difficult for us to train off season. Ideally for me, they would be doing swim training, tactics training, EMS training on the winter time, so that come summer season, they're ready to go. So that's a whole nother thing. Again, expanding the season. This year we lost a teenager. days before our lifeguards were on the beach. That one was preventable. That one, if we had the tower up, we had the guards on, it would not have been a fatality. It may have been a water rescue. I'm not going to downplay the fact that it wouldn't be a water rescue, but I would like to believe that it would not have been a fatality because our tower would have seen this group of 4 teenagers enter in a Tolovana. Our other guards on the beach would have already known that there's a rip forming in that area and they're already making their way down. And so by the time they do get swept out, our guards are there suited up, rescue board in the water, back on the beach, not 7-8 minutes delayed. So we're getting fatalities, unfortunately, but they're before lifeguards and because they don't have the monitoring, they don't have the patrols, they don't have the presence down there to say, hey, you're making a mistake. So my goal would be to start staffing in May, first part of May, have a presence on the beach. They may just be, yes, ma'am.
I was thinking about that. What about spring break? If we get some good days on spring
Thank you
break,
for that. So
that's, I mean, it seems like it should be even sooner than May.
I would love that. So, and that's, I'm going to go into that, but yeah, keep that in mind because I think what you just said will really justify the direction that we're trying to take the program. So that we have, if we see weather trending nice and we're saying, hey, it's going to be, you know, offshore wind, warm, good surf, we're probably going to get a lot of people on the beach. We're probably going to get a lot of surfers in the water and we're probably going to get a water rescue. And so we can, if we have a group of people that are already somewhat trained or ready to go, it's a simple text. Hey, who wants to work spring break? We will pay you, get on the beach. We've got vehicles for you, go patrol. That's it. Just be a presence on the beach. That's all. That's a majority of what that job is just being on the beach and saying that doesn't look safe and I'm going to go say something about it. And then it becomes a non-issue. But when there's nobody saying, hey, that's not safe, then they're just going to keep going further and further and further and out they go. So yeah, you are completely correct that it's not just summertime. It's whenever we have a good set of weather windows that, and usually I'll try and get on the beach at some point when I'm working during those days just to try and be present. But it'd be nice to have a group of people that are capable of doing that. So any questions? Moving on. So equipment replacement. Season after season lifeguards are and their equipment are exposed to some of the harshest environments. Saltwater does damage. No matter how well you clean it, you could put it in a thing of water and soak it overnight and dry it out. It's still probably going to start rusting away due to salt water. So even though the lifeguards have 45 minutes at the end of their shift to clean, things are starting to degrade. Personal protective equipment, that's stuff we wear. Wetsuits, fins, buoys, all the stuff that they wear to make a rescue. The wetsuits, if I have a wetsuit, sorry, Chief, and he wears it, it's not going to fit me the same ever again.
I wouldn't be wearing anyways.
But that's the problem is when you have, everybody has a wetsuit. In our surf rescue team, everybody has their own issue wetsuit because it's fit to us. It's comfortable. It goes on nice and we're able to swim in it right. The problem is with lifeguards, everybody's sharing wetsuits. So we have generalized sizes. We have a small, medium, large, extra large. Well, if somebody's wearing an extra large and they're on the larger side of extra large, then the person that's on the smaller side of extra large is not going to fit in it right. And so it starts to stretch out over time. And when you're putting it on for a rescue or training or what have you, things are pulling and they start getting ripped. But if you wear a wetsuit that's too big, it's difficult to swim in and it takes on water. It doesn't give you the insulation properties you need. So we replaced 5 wetsuits this year. We're going to need to just keep replacing them as the seasons go. But they're starting to show their age. Some are ripped. We patched them, but that's their safety. All they bring in the water with them is a set of fins, a wetsuit, and the can. So those got to be top notch because that's what they're relying on to protect them while they're getting to a victim that's in trouble too. So we need to replace the wetsuits, update communication equipment. So portable radios are the walkie-talkies, for lack of a better term. They're hand-me-downs from when the police department updated their last round of radios. So they're aged, they're old. We can't just get new radios all the time. And so some of them are falling apart, they don't work, they're not waterproof, and we're on the beach in the rain, in the mist. So we're gonna need new portable radios. We're gonna need additional waterproof radios so that when the lifeguard makes entry in the water, they have a way of communicating. Because right now, if they don't bring a radio in with them, all they have is a hand signal that I'm okay or I need help. That's it. So having the ability to bring a radio in there with them where they can actually tell us, this is what I have, this is what I need, will increase our effectiveness. And then vehicle mounted radios, 4 miles of beach, the portable radios do not reach. So we rely on vehicle mounted radios because they have higher power. Well, the one that's on the sidewalk is completely dead. And then we were lucky enough to get one installed in the Dodge this year, but we need to just continue to replace once they get worn. EMS equipment, lifeguards are the first responders on the beach. They are usually the ones notifying the fire department of a medical. And so we need to make sure that they're properly equipped. The other thing is we had several times where we had concurrent calls. So the fire district's running a call, lifeguards need help. They've got to wait until the ambulance comes to their medical before they can leave to go to the beach. And so in that period of time, that lifeguard has to take care of that patient. So we need to make sure that the gear that they have is properly up to date and they're properly equipped. New binoculars, if there's any bird watchers, hunters, optics is probably one of the most important things that you can have. We have old binoculars. So imagine trying to find a bobbing head in a sea of foam. And all you see is just a black dot. Well, it could be a cormorant, could be a sea lion, could be a person. You don't know. So thankfully we got a new spotting scope this year. So that's really helped and that lives in the tower, but it would be good that we replace all of the binoculars and all of the vehicles that are patrolling the beach. And that will be first into that rescue. And then replace and upgrade the daily uniforms. They're in sweatpants, sweatshirt, cotton shirt. What does not breathe? All of that. So now you're going to say, hey, everybody, let's go swim in the ocean to train. And then you're going to put on this sweatsuit that's all cotton and you're still wet. And then now you are still have to, because we try to train in the early part of the shift so that when it starts getting busy, we're ready to go. So we usually try and train 10, 11, 12. Well, now they're in wet clothes the whole 10-hour day. So upgrading their equipment, paying a little bit extra to get them the right gear that they're protected against the inclement weather that they're having to be exposed to while they're out there for 10 hours. Rescue boards. Rescue boards are the boards we bring in to effect a rescue of a victim that's in the water. One is out of service completely. We've taken a look at it. We've brought it to a couple people and it's delaminated to the point where if it touches water, it's just going to suck it up and turn into a log. Another one of our lifeguards and firefighters is attempting to fix as we speak. 2 have been damaged quite a bit and are in need of replacement because the repairs are beyond the capability. And then 2, it's not on the picture, but there's 2. We use one right now. We're borrowing one for the fire department. But if it takes a really massive wave, the foam padding rips off. And so now you got this big old foam pad that's on your head. So we're working on trying to replace those as well. ATV currently, they had 2 this year. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the season, we found out that one was irreparable. So we're operating with just the one ATV. So it would be nice to purchase another ATV for movement of personnel, patrolling, as well as rescue response. The side-by-side, so the top right photo of it stuck, happened probably once a day. Unfortunately, the four-wheel drive, which is pretty critical in the soft sand environment, was out of service. Again, one of those things that's probably irreparable. We've talked to a couple people and they said that it's rusted so bad that if they were to replace it, all the bolts that they would remove would have to be replaced, plus all the stuff that the bolts were touching are gonna have to, it was a compounding issue. And so we just tried to sneak by for the season. And we were vastly limited to our response capabilities. And that used to be our go-to rig. Unfortunately, it was wet sand or hard sand, and that's it. It couldn't go anywhere beyond that. The Dodge has been great. Thankfully, it has worked for us, but it is a large vehicle. It has a very long wheelbase. It's a tall vehicle. Unfortunately, all of the space is in the bed. So when we have 4 lifeguards on the beach, there's 4 people crammed in that little truck trying to get out of the elements. I'm sorry, 3 people crammed in that truck trying to get out of the elements. And you don't have a full cab in the back. Now imagine busy summer day. There's a lot of people at Gower, a lot of people at Tolovana. We have to patrol, not even a rescue, but we have to patrol back and forth and trying to manipulate a long wheelbase vehicle through kids and through people just trying to enjoy the day. It makes our lives pretty difficult, and you're mentally drained by the end of the day just from not trying not to kill somebody, trying not to run a person over. And so having a shorter wheelbase vehicle would be more maneuverable for us. Southern California, that Toyota is their spec. Pretty much every single department has that type of vehicle because it's tried and true. That's Huntington Beach, but LA County, Santa Cruz City, you name it. A lot of the Southern California full-time lifeguard departments run those because they're great vehicles.
The vehicles you had on the previous slides, weren't they for patrolling the beach?
So yeah, so that was our go-to vehicle to patrol,
Right?
especially when it was busy.
Yeah.
Well, there's no four-wheel drive, and so it was getting stuck every single day because it only had two wheels that spun.
No, but you talk about replacing that. And then the slide before that one.
Yep.
So you want to replace the ATV and then you want to replace that one. So if those are the patrol vehicles, why do you need to patrol in the truck?
So how we work, and that's a great question. So how it operates is with 4 miles of beach, we have one person in the tower.
Mhm.
We have one person usually at the base of the tower in case we have a call in Haystack or an issue at Haystack area proper. And then we try to put a person at Tolovana and a person at Chapman. So what we would do is we would leave the ATV for the person that's staying at the tower. And then we would send the side-by-side down to Tolovana because that's where it gets congested and difficult to drive in. And then we would send the truck up to Chapman because it has to cross the creek. We need that high clearance in order to cross Ecola Creek. And so that vehicle, that's the only vehicle that keeps you out of the elements too. And so a majority of the time when it's raining out and we're still out on the beach patrolling because there's still people playing in the water, they're driving on the truck because the side-by-side doesn't give you any protection from the wind. An ATV doesn't give you any protection from anything. So a majority of our time spent during inclement weather is in that vehicle, in that truck in particular. Part of the program that, moving forward, we need to have a sustainable replacement cycle. These can't be looked at like a fire department or a city type entity where you can get 15, 20 years out of a vehicle such as that. You're lucky if you can get 5 to 7 because it's in the harshest environments out there. And so we have to kind of change our mindset and look more towards an expendable type resource. A resource that we're okay, we know that we're going to invest money in and may give us 5 years, but we're going to plan appropriately so that at that 5-year mark, we are ready for that replacement. And if it doesn't need it, then we just prolong it. So that's definitely one of the things is trying to get a replacement cycle built into the program. Lifeguard tower. So built in 85, it's almost as old as I am. So built in 85, it's lived a long life. And it's showing it right now. So this last season, we looked at it before the season started, and there were struts or cross bracing that was completely cracked. And that is a structural member that was cracked. And so we had to replace those. They had to rebuild the entire top of the box where the lifeguards sit because it was dry rotted out and completely fallen apart. So, and unfortunately, some people had tagged all of the plexiglass in there with not nice stuff. So we had to replace the plexiglass. It would be nice to get a new tower. We've talked about it for many, many years. We've talked to coasters and we started drawing up schematics for a tower replacement that would be similar to what is there. It's not going to be anything crazy because that does a great job. It would be nice to have a little bit more protection from the inclement weather when you're up in the tower shift, because you're spending an hour in that little box and there might be a little bit of wind on the beach, but you get up there and it is blowing and you're cold and you're miserable. So having some, providing some more protection so that we can accomplish the mission better. And then knowing that we move it from where it is to north of Nikus Park every season, it needs to be able to sustain that. Now it's starting to wobble. You can, when you see the backhoe lifted up out of the sand, it's starting to creak and move and shift, and some of the brackets are broke, and it's in need. It's lived a good life, but there's definitely it definitely needs to be replaced.
Don't you think if it was stored somewhere other than the beach when it's not being used, that
I'm sure that
along the life?
Yeah, I'm sure that would help, but it's awkward. I don't know. I know they used to somehow bring it down to the beach back in the day. I don't know how they did it. But if there was a way that we could make it more maneuverable to where we could put it in more of a climate controlled and out of the consistent elements, I think that would be great. I just don't know where that could be and how that's possible. But I definitely think that, again, I think looking at long-term goal setting, knowing that we're not going to get 40 years out of it, knowing that we're going to get 25 years out of it, and that just be the way it is. But I think a stronger supporting platform would help us a lot with the moving back and forth. And yeah, maybe designing it so that certain components can be replaced easier than others. So staffing recommendations. This year is going to be a challenge for us. Multiple of my lead lifeguards are leaving. They've graduated college, which is great. I'm super proud and happy of them, but we're going to take the hit on the lifeguard side of things because now they're not going to be available. They were my go-to people and they're not going to be available again. So now I got to try and replace them. The other thing that affects us big time is pay. How can I say, come sit on the beach, which is beautiful. Yeah, you may get rained on. It's probably pretty cold because of the wind. You might get some sun today. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, and you got to make a rescue potentially because some people are getting into rip currents, and you make less than somebody that is working at McDonald's makes. So it doesn't really match what they have to put up with on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't really match the risk that they have to put their lives in, the physical fitness level that they're supposed to maintain themselves to, because they are essentially the last last effort before somebody passes. So there's a commitment on them, and I don't think that they're funded appropriately and compensated appropriately for that commitment. And I think we're losing a great pool of people from the Portland area. I know there's lifeguards out there in the Portland side. I know there's people that are interested, but can't afford housing, and you can't really afford gas back and forth multiple times a week to the coast. So having some increased funding, compensation would help. Maybe.
Where do you think you could, if the Portland market isn't really available, where are you going to get your lifeguards?
If the Portland market is not,
If you're saying that the Portland market probably isn't going to be available to you, where are you going to get your lifeguards?
great question. So this last year, Clean Line Surf really helped us. There was a lot of surfers that worked at Clean Line that also covered shifts as a lifeguard. What better people, because they know the ocean, they spend all of their days in it, especially on the off time. So they really helped us out. And we have quite a few returning guards from Clean Line. United States Coast Guard provided us several people who are looking at becoming rescue swimmers. Unfortunately, we lost all of them because they've got orders to deploy to their prospective schoolings. So I lost those guys. We had a lot of returning guards, but again, they were all in college and this was their summer job. They went back to college and they've graduated. And so I don't know if we're going to get them back. I don't know what their plan is. But beyond that, we go to the schools for the swim teams to try and bring them in. We try and create, a good face out with the surfer community to try and encourage them to come in. We don't have a huge pool of people that we can pull from. It's just not where we're located. It's difficult. So, if we're able to acquire interest from the Portland area, it would be towards, collegiate swimmers, current lifeguards at, businesses over there. And then just having to be creative with scheduling to try and make it the most bang for their buck when they come out to the coast.
What would be an appropriate salary?
So we've increased it to $19 to $23 an hour. Is what and you'll see that in the proposal. That's what we've cleared out. That gives additional incentive for those people that are returning, because right now we have returning guards that have been there for 5 years. They're stepped out, so they're making the highest that they can make for the past 2 years. So there's no real true incentive for them to want to come back. And then with this program too, the way that I'm hoping it lays out is we also have succession potential. So there's the lead guard position that we'll talk about. This could be that opportunity for them to want to stay in, because that's the next step in the path. So you have that potential advancement and succession planning that can go along with it. So here's my ideal staffing model. Head lifeguard, basically what my position would be or was, that's what they would take over. So instead of me trying to run fire department operations, training and safety and lifeguard program, they would take the lifeguard program. Then below them, they're going to have 2 lead guards, and these are kind of got funky on me. So the lead guards are 6 months seasonal. So they'll be employed for 6 months, working pretty much 4 10s on opposite schedules. And so there will always be a lead guard that's on the beach. And that way that head guard always has somebody that is below them and in the structure to where they can make sure that there's consistency. The seasonal guards are those people that, come in and is that summertime job concept. And then the junior lifeguards is a concept that I would like to further develop and really try and capitalize on, again, the future planning phases of lifeguarding, so that we have people that are interested at a younger age, so that when they become of age to be a lifeguard, they're there. So again, head lifeguard is responsible for overall program development, management, preseason's duties. Again, this is full-time year-round. So you'll see in the proposal, that this is a captain's position. And it's under the captain's instant or the fire department command structure. But their goal, their primary responsibility is lifeguarding. So recruitment, training, vehicle maintenance, again, they're going to Portland to talk, to recruit, get those people interested. They're continuing to do recurrent training throughout the winter months to keep people that are available, ready to go. Vehicle maintenance. So we're not rushing to try and fix things a month before the season starts. They already have it going. And then it's pretty cut and dry what they're going to be doing during the season. They're a lifeguard. They're on the beach when they can be, when they're not doing managerial stuff. They're public outreach. You know, one of the goals for this program is to do surfer CPR, to do other types of events to where we can really start building that community of safety around the ocean. That's kind of one of the goals of this program, if we can develop it appropriately, is to really start to bolster this and that public outreach, and that would hopefully increase interest. Obviously, incident responses of priority for that person. And then postseason, that was, spring break. I didn't put that in there, but that's a great piece. They're there for spring break. They are on the beach, and maybe some of the other seasonals or maybe the lead lifeguards are available and they come in. So now we have 3 people patrolling the beach, ensuring safety. And when we do have a water rescue, they're there, hopefully to stop it, but if not, a rapid response. So the lead lifeguards, again, this is a 6-month position. They would provide early to late coverage. So they would start in April, be on the beach by May, and then stay until October. So we'd have preseason, postseason, quote unquote, season coverage. They would assist in the management. They would assist in the public outreach, the recruitment. Again, they would work opposite schedules so that we'd always have overlap. We'd always have one of them on the beach on duty at a time. They would provide additional training, a trainer, and then just ensure operations are effective throughout the day. If that head lifeguard can't be on the beach right then, they have beach operations. And that's kind of how it ran this year. Every day I had a lead lifeguard, and they were my point. They were in charge of the beach, and they knew that if something happened, they were responsible for it, getting the ball rolling when it comes to response. And if they had a question, if they couldn't handle it, then I'm the next in the chain and I answer it, and then get that flow of communication and that hierarchy. So that would be just the same thing, but on a formal scale and a little bit longer. And then the seasonal lifeguards, these are the teachers, the students, the surfers, the summertime adventurers that happen to be coming to Cannon Beach to try and build their resumes, to build their life experiences. My goal is to have at least 20. That would be ideal. That way we have enough staffing. And the goal is keep 3 on the beach. So it would be lead lifeguard and at least 2 additional seasonals on the beach at any given time. With a goal of 4. I mean, 4 is ideal for me. You have, again, 1 in the tower, 1 below the tower, kind of on a break, and then you have 2 patrolling, and then you just have a continual rotation. So every hour, a new person in the tower, new person on their break, and then so on and so forth. And so you have that work rest cycle. And in rescues, the 6 people we pulled out of Chapman Point, we had 4 guards on duty that day. And I could say that if I only had 2, it would have been a whole different outcome. But being able to deploy all 4 lifeguards and get 4 lifeguards in the ocean to effect rescues really, truly helped. And then again, the junior lifeguard program, this would be focused on high school age people that are interested in kind of developing their skills, develop their knowledge, and slowly, maybe make a career out of this. The person in the middle, that's actually Nalu Isley. He was a junior guard this last year, and then now he was lifeguard for me this last season, and now he's part of the fire department. So that would be my hope, is to continue that progression. To have those people that are interested in and really support them into, developing their future.
So what's the minimum, excuse me, age requirement?
So it's 16 years old. Yeah, but they're very limited on what they can and can't do. Yeah. But just get them on the beach, get them in the tower to help with tower coverage. If we do have a rescue and they're in the truck, as long as they're trained appropriately, they can be that spotter. Because anytime anybody makes entry in the water, you have to have a person watching them. And so that could be that junior guard. But get them in the training, get them in exposure, just build that ocean confidence. I think would be super helpful. And then, depending on where their program goes, it could become for younger adults below that. My daughter was in a junior lifeguard program at 10 or 12 or whatever it was. And no, it was actually, that was probably like 7 or 8. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But I think definitely capitalizing on those high schoolers that maybe need a little bit of direction, a little bit of help, and where they want to go. All right, so fire district program proposal. So I think going into this, we all know the importance of this program, and we want to make sure that the fire district works collaboratively with the city to come up with a mutually beneficial program. That's our overarching goal with this whole thing. Is you all know that if we don't have a lifeguard program, it could be very bad. We could have a very unsafe beach. And so it would be great to work together to build an effective program. The proposal is Cannon Beach Fire District is interested in taking over the lifeguard program fully with financial assistance from the city of Cannon Beach. This will be a joint program with financial obligations for both parties. And like I said before, we need to start this now because there's going to take time for recruitment to get people interested, to get them to apply, to then get trained up and get them on the beach. So there's a lot of steps that need to go into place to be able to have a program operational by May. So the head lifeguard, this is a full-time year-round position. Again, that will be within the fire department command structure. And their primary responsibility is management of the lifeguard program. Yes, ma'am.
Question. Now, on your sheet that you gave us, it said 2/3 of the position is dedicated to lifeguards.
Yeah, so the last line, the last bullet point down there is we anticipate the head lifeguard to spend roughly 2/3 of their time devoted to the lifeguard program. The other 1/3 would be fire department operations based stuff.
And can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I don't know about PERS in Oregon, how it operates. That's 38% of the wages goes to PERS. Is that standard?
So each
For fire.
entity has their own rate. Our rate right now, depending on what tier they're in, I calculate off of the tier 2 is 37.27 or 37.87. I can't remember exact number, but that's what that's calculated off. And that's why it sets up there. It could be less depending on what tier they're in. Because they're in a newer tier within our organization, it's a lower rate. And so I calculate off the high rate, but that's why it says that there could be less because we don't know who we get.
Okay, and the insurance, what insurance, is that health?
Health insurance. Health insurance.
Health insurance for one person.
So because that's calculated off of family insurance, because that's what I'm going to calculate off the highest. That's why it says it could be less. Depending on if it's a single person, it's going to be less for a single person. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's why those caveats are up there.
And that total of 154,338 is for the full time, with 2/3 of it being dedicated to.
Yes. Right.
Yep. And so on the fire district side, we gain an operational person. We gain a person that will be jet ski operator, swim rescue qualified. The fire district would benefit by having that person year round. And that's what would provide us that year round coverage for those that spring break influx and people. We're ready to go. We have this extra person plus the on duty staff. We're able to seamlessly operate.
Okay.
Questions on that position? All right, so the lead lifeguard, again, this total is for two of them. So a 6-month position. So 2 6-month positions. They'd be working opposite schedules. And they are the next in line when it comes to hierarchy of the lifeguard program.
And is it normal for someone who's employed for 6 months to get full PERS?
It depends on what they're already in. If they're already vested in PERS, we have to pay PERS. So if they're already working a job that has invested in the PERS system, that's where we have to pay PERS. And that's where we run into with our seasonal, the teachers. They come in, they're already vested in PERS, we have to pay PERS. That could be the same thing with this. And that's why it's up there, because we don't know.
Okay.
It could be less than that. But
So that would be 84,000 times 2.
Yeah,
No.
that's for both of them.
That's for both of them?
And no insurance just because it's a seasonal job.
For seasonal, yep.
questions? All right, so then the seasonal lifeguards, again, our goal is 3 seasonal lifeguards per day for the 22 weeks that we're covering the beach with that rate increase of $19 to $23 per hour. This would include those junior lifeguards, so we would, maybe have to augment that. But the thing is, in similar to this last year, there were days that we had a fully staffed beach, and it was great. And then there was days where we only had 2 people on the beach, and it was not great. And so those days where we're running light, we'll pay for the days where we're running heavy on people. But that's an estimate for us. Obviously, this will go up and down based off of how it says PERS rate of the people that are working, the daily staffing. So that is a variable number that could increase or decrease. For instance, this year, the IGA was written for $165,000. And for personnel costs, we spent 114 and some change. So even though we were staffed pretty well this year, we were still under what we had budgeted. And so I would tend to say it's going to be the same moving forward, but
I guess I'm curious because I just did some numbers just to check, just to see. So I did 3 lifeguards times 22 weeks gives us 66 weeks, right? Okay. And then times 40 hours and then times $23 an hour. And I didn't come out with 106.60.
you come out higher than that.
No, lower.
Maybe
I don't have, I would have to go back to my
maybe 4.
spreadsheet. I don't know how
If you increase that to 4,
Maybe if I increased it to 4, it would be different.
maybe there was a typo.
Well, I mean, it's if someone has a calculator, they can just do it right now. I'm just saying it came out way less. So that's why I'm concerned.
What did you get?
When I went 3 times 22 times 40 times 23, I got
What'd you get?
60,720.
That'd be,
So something's
Something's wrong.
did twice, and I could be wrong. I just thought it'd be nice if somebody
I'm impressed you actually try to do it in your head.
could have used calculator. I'm serious about this though, and I also don't understand why you have almost a $60,000 PERS for seasonal lifeguards who are working 22 weeks.
Again, the reason is because I don't know who I'm gonna get. And so I'm gonna budget that I'm gonna have to pay it on everybody.
It's not being conservative.
I'm not being conservative because in the past, when we did this, when we started taking over, good majority of our lifeguards came from the school. So they were PERS. And so I had to pay PERS on them.
I mean, they were teachers.
They were teachers.
Okay.
So I had to pay PERS on them and I have to pay them at our rate, not at the school rate. I have to pay them at my rate. And so,
More than a teacher would make.
yeah, so
Firefighter.
that's why that's up there is because I'm gonna be conservative and plan for that.
Lisa, we do the same thing with, and I'm sure that Mark does too, that when we're pricing out an employee, we price out the insurance as if it's going to be a family. And we might save some money if it's not. But if we don't have enough money to pay for that position for a year. So Mark's got to do, pretty much it's a conservative way to move forward.
Right.
But we're gonna audit him anyway.
Yeah, I did 4, I think, and it was about 80 something thousand. So there's some
Yeah.
numbers that need to get readjusted.
We used four seasonal lifeguards and it came out to 80.
Mhm.
Okay, so
So-
obviously 106
One
pages,
got added on there.
double
You've got
what I got.
You've got junior lifeguards in there also.
Yeah, something got added in there. In the end, I get where you're going, Lisa, but in the end, it doesn't matter when you get to the end, you'll see why the number doesn't, in a way, doesn't matter in the end, when you see what we're talking about.
Okay,
I got 60,000 also.
yeah, so that's,
Good job, Lisa.
oh, if you get numbers, you should check them.
Yep.
And I just,
Yep.
My mistake.
Can you send us the detail on?
Yep.
How you got those figures?
yeah, because it's none of it's, and that really bothers me. I just, yeah, okay, sorry, carry on.
No, and it's great. And so, yeah, there's gonna be a cost for the seasonals. We're again hoping to have at least 3 on the beach, plus the lead lifeguard, so a total of 4 per day is our hoped for number. And so there will be a cost to doing that. When it comes to equipment and capital, these are some things that we need to start looking at. Building that replacement cycle so that we are budgeting every year to replace down the road. One of the things that we're looking at is obviously we're gonna have to spend about $25,000 for a new side-by-side pretty quick. Because this one will not last. It's not gonna work this season. So we're gonna have to spend, $25,000 for a new side-by-side that hopefully in 5 years we'll be able to replace. And then whatever we do for vehicle to replace the Dodge, hopefully we can maybe get another year out of the Dodge, but this year towards the end, it was starting to make some noises. So we want to build in not only a plan for replacement now, but a plan for the future. With material and services, again, increasing the budget to allow for better uniforms, improved EMS supplies, the continual operating of fuel, vehicle maintenance, equipment, and so on and so forth. So why we said that these are fixed will come into play here. So what we're requesting is that I can't remember the terms that you used in the board, but basically we're asking for $50,000 to start this program. So we can get the program started by the first of the year.
I don't understand that. What is the $50,000 for?
To start the program before the budget year.
They won't have any money till July.
Okay, so $50,000 of your budget, or is it an additional $50,000?
So we had, back up. So last year we did the program and we budgeted 165,000.
Mhm.
We spent about 114,000. So what we're asking for is that the rest of that 50,000 that will carry us through to July 1 for this budget year.
The 150,000 was budgeted for us in 23 and 24. So those funds do carry over until July.
Okay,
So that's what he's requesting is that those funds be made available.
okay. Plus $265,000 annually,
Correct,
starting in July.
correct.
And that current IGA, you were billing for actual expenses?
Yes.
That,
Yep.
so you didn't bill for that extra amount that we're talking about?
Correct.
And is in the new proposal, is that still part of it, or you're asking for the flat?
What Bruce and I talked about is that we'll do a flat. This is what we're doing, and then at the end of the year, we will come back and say, okay, this is actually what we spent.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I read that. I read that somewhere.
Yep,
We'll do a true up.
yep.
Mhm.
We spent a lot of time this last year, myself, my admin, and Lori, going back and forth. A lot of time that really didn't need to be spent. That could be better spent at the end of the year.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding why we couldn't still do a cost reimbursement with not to exceed a certain number rather than a contract for services. What is the,
It was the time taken to do like a monthly true up. We took a lot of time from Lori, took a lot of time from Mark. And it's like, at the end, if we do one where we look and say, okay, now these are the people that you had on, and then this was the cost associated to you, and we provided you with this much. So there's a subtraction of whatever the difference is we get back, or else we get it as a credit for the second year, something like that.
you still have to do all the math, whether or not you do as a cost reimbursement or a contract for services. You still have to do all the truing up. You still have to make sure that all the numbers match. And I just don't understand, at this point, at least, why we don't do a cost reimbursement for services to start off with and then see how it works with these new ideas and this new budget. And then if it works out well and the numbers seem to be making sense, then we go on to doing a contract for services. That's, to me, makes fiscal sense, but
We could do it that way. We have done it for a year. And it was the time taken for a relatively small adjustment. It took a lot of time on the administration side. And, I'm looking at.
And this was quarterly.
No, this
This is
twice a month.
monthly.
We did after each pay period.
Monthly to annual.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
what
exactly.
about monthly to quarterly?
That means we would do it twice. I mean, we could do it monthly. We can do it, on a quarterly basis.
Well, it doesn't sound like that was.
The fact is,
It's,
it worked out in that, that we spent less than what we were contracted for. Now, in this way, we would pay the money up front, but we would get the funds back that we didn't do without taking as much of the time to get reimbursed.
But it's a whole lot more money, Bruce. It's $100,000 more.
Understood?
So are you telling me it's worth $100,000 not to take the time to do the screwing up?
Well, that's why I
basis?
suggested quarterly.
It won't be $100,000. I mean, what we discovered was it was like $40,000 was what was not paid, what we didn't have to pay. So if we pay and it works to be, roughly the same and it's still $40,000, we will get $40,000 as a credit or as a true up on, once the year has gone through. But I don't see, I wouldn't, part of their problem is they didn't have lifeguards all the time. A lot of times they did have just two.
Yeah,
So, but that would all get resolved and we would be, we can do it that way. But from our standpoint, like one of the things I look at is that, we're gonna have a new finance director. And once this is gonna be starting around the time that person would start or within a month or two of that. And then on top of everything else that they've got to do, there's got to be a true up for the fire department,
lifeguards, yeah.
lifeguards. So I mean, but it can be done otherwise, but we have found that it takes an inordinate amount of time for what we think the difference is going to be.
No, I'm curious, how come TLT funds can't be used to fund lifeguards? Since I said the bulk of the work that the lifeguard program does has to do with visitors. I don't think very many local people run into the ocean, during a king tide and jump around. I mean, so.
Language of the law,
Hmm?
the language of the statute.
It has to be.
Well,
spent
be a
on
facility.
ocean or a facility. We push the envelope with the fact that we think the Rock is a facility. We've had conversations with Ashley, and it's harder to, make an argument that you have a,
Well, come here and don't drown. That's the promotion.
There you go, Jim.
Because Short Sands has no lifeguards and they're the biggest surfing beach along this whole stretch of coast with not one lifeguard.
Right.
So you come to Cannon Beach and you surf and you don't drown because you have lifeguards protecting you. That's great promotion, I think. I mean, it bothers me I guess it bothers me to spend these kinds of dollars protecting tourists who come to the beach and don't use common sense and not being able to recoup any of that money from them. That bugs me.
Understood. And that was one of the first things that we looked at. And the attorneys are not comfortable yet saying that this is a facility that we can spend the funds on. We're pushing the envelope in a lot of different places for TLT. But this is one that they're not saying we're ready to go ahead and give it an okay on.
Can we get back to the variable and the adjustment, whether it's a quarterly or it's an annual?
It's important questions, Gary. The question.
I think they're answered. We can't change the statute the way it is right now.
But once the statute gets changed, we're going to be first in line.
So I think last year, one of the questions that the council had when we started this is, why don't we just take the program over? And that's what we're trying to do. That's the direction. And I think when you're taking it over, making a contract for service is the cleanest, easiest way to do it. Then, like Bruce said, us going back and forth of asking each quarter, each month, whatever, for reimbursement versus coming forward and saying, here's what you guys did, here's what we did with it, here's the documentation.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So if the actual expenses come in lower than
Yes.
projected, then that amount gets applied to the next year.
Next year.
This next year.
Correct.
And is the variable totally on the variability of the benefits?
Yes, it's the variable.
Time spent on the beach when it comes to how many guards.
So maybe overtime or?
Yep.
It's the variable of how many guards do we get, and it's the variable of, are we paying PERS and those benefits? What of those do we have to pay?
Okay,
That's the big variable.
I got it.
I have a question though, on the information that we received in the packet, and maybe this is a little bit updated than from what we received.
Yes, it
But
is.
the costs, it says the costs of the whole program are 394,000. And you're asking the city to pay 265.
Correct.
So who pays the
Fire district.
amount? So you pay about,
Fire district recognizes
514.
that anything over that, the fire district is gonna, it is a benefit to us to have the lifeguards on the beach. Our board recognizes the benefit of the program to us. And so that's why we're trying to come in this as a partnership. This has to be a partnership. There's a huge benefit to the fire district to having the lifeguards on the beach. If we don't have the lifeguards on the beach, our call volume is gonna be through the roof. We cannot do it. We will be burning out, all of us, running calls on the beach. There is so much that the lifeguards do of just prevention, keeping people safe, putting out little campfires, finding lost kids. This is an essential program for the fire district as well.
Okay, staying with Nancy's question here, we've got two budgets here, one a proposed high and one a proposed low.
Right. I was trying to, when Bruce and I were meeting, and basically what we did, we just took what Bruce and I met and Jason and said, here's the start to get council information.
And the proposed low essentially
I was trying,
accounts for some of the lower,
correct,
ending lower on the variables.
correct.
Nancy's question, on the high, the budget total is 394,000. The city contribution is 265. District portion would be 181, 514. But on the low, the city portion is still 265,000 and the district portion becomes 101.
Becomes less.
Well, and the thing that isn't captured in there that we talked about since that meeting was what we talked about there. in the sense that if our personnel costs are lower, then that 265 is gonna go down. Because, yeah, if, again, just like what we did this year, we budgeted 165,000 for personnel costs. At the end of the year, we had 114,000.
I guess you're willing to put in $181,000 if it hits the high end.
Yep.
But you're willing to put in
880,000.
101,000 if it's at the low end.
Right.
But the city nevertheless pays.
395 minus
If,
65,
if
100.
there's 265 of expenses.
But if that's the budget that you're getting, the tendency is, you know, I mean, in other words, if you have choices to make,
Yeah, those numbers are,
you're able.
Yes, they are. That's why it's updated.
That's how,
But we wouldn't necessarily allow that to happen.
how would you stop it?
If, for example, if there's an employee comes in and they're charged the firefighter PERS level, we're gonna wanna know, is that a certified firefighter or is that, you know, or not? Because if it's not, it's gonna be probably in the 20% range. Well, we would go through and we would do that sort of an audit all the way through the end. We would see the actual price of the vehicles, the actual cost of the maintenance, anything like that occurs.
And you'd be checking that all the way along during the year,
No, well,
very end?
probably more towards the very end. Again, because otherwise we're doing that same exercise monthly,
Or quarterly?
quarterly, and then it would be done twice instead of the 6 times or 7 times. But Lisa, we can do that. We can do that. I'm just saying that I don't think that there's going to be that much of a difference when we do a single heavy audit all the way through versus if we did it monthly. And then the cost associated with us doing it and with them doing it, that's a cost to the program. And so I think that we can do it once. We found that by doing it the way that we did, we found there was a significant difference in that. I don't know if it was just because it was monthly or because we were thorough. But I know that they spent a bunch of time going through and arguing over different costs, and that's why we ended up where we did.
And now we wouldn't be doing that,
We would be doing it once.
right? After it's all spent.
But some of it would not be spent, and we can either get it back, they can either pay us back in cash, or we can do it as a credit. We would get the funds back. We would pay 265 or something less, depending on how much it costs to run the program.
The whole idea, and I'm gonna go back to it and I'll try, is we're trying to make it a joint program. We can, it makes sense to make it a joint. And I guess there has to be some trust between the two agencies. You know,
Oh, definitely, yeah.
we're trying to make it a better program. And our board is willing to say, we're gonna put in the money. We're gonna put in extra than what the city is putting in to make it more of a program.
One of the things that I like about the program is that in the past, you know, we've said here, you can go ahead and you can use this truck or you can use this side by side. They had there was no plan to say, okay, at the end of 5 years, we're gonna need to buy another one. One of the things that Marcus got me interested in is that all that equipment, they're going to be setting funds aside to replace at the end of 5 years. Well, right now, it's, you know, we let them take our worst vehicle and you guys didn't hear that.
Oh, no, you're right.
It's along those lines, how we're doing it. We are not doing it on a professional basis. So the additional funding that's coming into it, if we're going to be a part of it, I don't have that much of a problem that it's costing us $100,000 more. Again, we don't know what it's going to cost, but if it does end up costing $100,000 or something less, I think it's being run much better than it's been run for years. So this says we're getting this done right. And so that additional funding seems the value is there for me.
I want to know if these numbers are just off or if I'm not understanding.
They're probably off.
Okay.
They're way
The
off.
proposed high The budget total is 394,039. City contribution is 265. That leaves 129,39. Not 181.
I'll go back and relook.
And then the other one is also pretty far off, but it's off $56,000, 752.
Go back and relook at what I was.
Yeah,
This went
my question is,
a number of iterations.
you're budgeting some money here, but if it comes in high, you will budget more, but if it comes in low, you'll budget less. I guess I'm just wondering why, you haven't just budgeted for $100,000 and then the city covers the rest, or
Cause we just started we started with the conversation, Bruce, of where are we going? How do we start this? And we were trying to kind of come in the middle of what's the high end and what's there and trying to show the middle.
Well, if your salary figures are, $46,000 less than what, I mean, you've got your salary figures at 106,000 and we're coming in at 60,000 in our figures. Does that mean the city would not have to pay 265, would pay 225?
Let's go back and redo before we start diving this.
That would be great, because
Let's go back and relook.
this page here with the cost for seasonal lifeguards.
Let me go back and relook.
I'm assuming this is a first look
Yes.
for us at this, and there's more to this process, obviously, before we get there. What does the process look like?
We would both be dealing with this budget, but in my discussions with Mark, he has asked so that we don't start to hire people after July. Can they have the remainder of the funds that would go into 23-24?
The 50,000.
Yeah.
So that's the starting point.
The goal will be come back in probably February to finish the IGA.
Is that coming out of whatever our final agreement number is?
No, that would be to start the program this year.
Okay,
But that.
so that would be in addition to the 260.
That come out, we've already budgeted
Yes,
that from this budget, from the 23-24 budget.
What you
that's correct.
spent last time.
Oh, you just have to take that money,
22, 20.
Yes.
22,
I'm
20.
sorry, 23-24.
Okay,
You're correct.
so 23. So we already budgeted it.
Yes,
So it's not a matter of taking extra money out. It's just a matter of saying, yes, go ahead and pay and spend what we've already budgeted.
yes.
All right.
So I would suggest that you come back with a correct
Yes, we'll come back with a clean. My
before,
apologies.
before March.
Yes,
But can I ask you a
Oh,
question? I'm
February?
sorry, because I'm just kidding. Okay, that $50,000 is, you say it's for startup costs?
it's to start the program because the program starts before July 1.
Right, but why isn't it subtracted from the 265 for the first year?
Because the 265 is going to carry us from July all the way through to the next July.
Budget.
Yeah. That's the next
Okay,
budget. year.
I get it. Okay, because you're adding on months
Yes.
for July. Okay. All right.
And we've already budgeted in our
No, I understand that part of it.
taken care. of. Okay, understand.
So February work session with corrected figures.
Yes. Or before, if we want to come back to work session before with the correct figures, before we come back in February.
January.
Yeah, during a work session.
I would really appreciate if you would, in your calculations, talk about salaries. If you sort of lay out for us
So it will.
the low PERS and the high PERS,
Absolutely.
because, I look at these numbers and I'm going, geez.
Yep.
No,
And we'll take a harder look at them too.
Defers.
Mhm.
A whole different issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, so district contribution, so 2 more slides. Just like the police and fire department, Cannon Beach lifeguards are critical to ensuring that our beaches remain safe. They should be adequately trained, adequately equipped, adequately staffed, because it is an entity that's out there. They are, when somebody goes to the beach, they're taking pictures of our tower, they're taking pictures of our lifeguards, they're talking to our lifeguards. That is the point of contact when that person touches the beach as a lifeguard. And so they should be equipped appropriately. They shouldn't be driving a 2002 Dodge. They should be driving something that looks clean, that looks nice, that looks well representative of Cannon Beach. So they need to be taken care of. And I think the overarching goal is, we're talking about $100,000. Is that worth $100,000?
I think you got your pretty good yes.
That's where I'm going
Yeah.
from.
I think that we're kind of there.
Mhm.
So,
Obviously, our goal is to not have anyone.
Absolutely.
That is the plan.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, thank you.
Can we have a break?
So we're gonna close the work session. And before we open the special meeting, we're gonna have a break.
We actually have one more item.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can still break.
we want to do that?
No, let's
Get it done.
let's
That's what?
let's not break right now.
The haystack thing.
We'll do haystack first.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just wish
Something
Okay.
quick, I hope.
Splash water in my face.
the haystack rock.
Yeah, the question was asked when we were talking about taking out the word misdemeanor from different places. The question was asked, how do we deal with things at Haystack Lot? And Jason is, who's the police chief, is been in contact with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and explained to Captain Glendale Fawn how we are doing the where we.
Guys in the audience.
Give them a summons or whatever to in a number which they said could be as high as, say, 1,000, but they didn't think it needed to be more excessive than that. But it and the reason is sometimes people just make mistakes. No, I mean, if they didn't see a sign or something like that, then you've got other people that are more aggressive or whatever, but they say they deal with that when they're trying to deal with fines. So anyway, so what is the number that we want to use if there's a violation of that type at Haystack Rock?
Can we be general about it and say the up to $1,000?
I would definitely like to,
I mean, the comment here is depending on the severity of what the individual has done. For example, they are taking or harassing wildlife. It could be additional fines for each violation. So I'm not sure what the different violations are. I see trespassing, I see failing to show a recreational user permit. I mean, how specific do we have to get here?
and then walking up into the place where the oyster catchers are nesting and wrecking the nests so that the babies are abandoned. I mean, that kind of thing happens a lot. That happened to several nests. And I just, I guess at least ignorance of the law is no excuse. It never has been. And that's one of the tenets of criminal law. I know that. And so I don't, saying that you're a family and you didn't read the sign, if the signage is good, and right now I agree the signage could even be better. And I'd like to see the signage be better, but I don't believe that people just don't see the signs when they're planted right in front of the saddle and they walk up into the saddle.
I guess my question is the subjective matter of just saying up to $1,000, because you're right, it might be someone that, oops, I didn't see the sign and we walked over a few rocks and then there's people that are climbing the rock and destroying nests.
Right.
So does it
That-
work to just have that subjective up to $1,000 and that's
Make the
determined?
decision. Would it be our municipal, would it be our, I mean, we don't have municipal court, but would our judge here would make the decision on how much they should be fined, or would the ticketing agent make the decision?
That's,
It'd be up to the municipal court judge as to what fines,
Okay,
so we don't need to worry about this. There may be multiple additional fines for each violation. We could just do up to $1,000.
And there's still the federal component of it too. I will say that U.S. Fish and Wildlife has always been a great partner with us. They've always been very responsive. And we work well with them. And a lot of the times these type reports we file to them, send them over, they take a look at them. And there's a lot of, you can see the violations that they have available to them, which are more than just ours of climbing on the rock. And they can hit people with each one of these, you know, at their discretion based on the report that we submit to them. These people did X, X, and X while they were climbing around on the rock.
So it might be $200 per infraction and they did 5 of them and it's $1,000.
Right, and the time to travel to Portland to go to federal court and back, and yeah, it's not a pleasant experience.
So if we do up to $1,000 and leave it to the discretion of the judge, then we're sort of covering those really egregious things like ruining a nest. But if it was just a family who stepped on a couple rocks, you know, and didn't realize that they were stepping on wildlife, they could explain that to the judge, and that would be, a good judge would fine them accordingly.
And Chris, when, I think that all you just said, Lisa, is correct. When we're talking about the 1,000, is that a per occurrence or is that a cumulative? If we were to set, if the city was to set $1,000.
So the city was just $1,000, and you know, our violation is climbing on the rock. Where the mean high tide is, and if you go past that point, you know, then we have the authority according to our code to write you a citation for that violation. Then it comes before the municipal court judge, and the judge, you know, reads our reports. We come in, we testify, tell the judge what's going on. You know, the person will have a chance to testify and say, hey, Your Honor, this is what happened, this is what occurred. And then the judge has the discretion to say, okay, based on everything I hear, I'm going to reduce the fine to this amount, or based on everything I hear, I'm going to hit you with the full $1,000. You know, you're disregarded, you showed contempt for everything, and yeah, it leaves discretion in the process.
Is it up to the judge as to whether it's sent to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife?
We'll forward our reports up to U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
That's an automatic kind of thing.
And say, okay, we're going to take action, you know, based on federal statutes to move forward. You know, and that's their discretion.
So it's an automatic, you forward them as.
Yeah, we forward our reports, things that involve the rock, go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
All right.
So up to 1,000. Everybody okay with that?
I think that's.
Okay,
So the next time you see the ordinance, there'll be an ordinance change to 1,000.
okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to close the work session and we're going to have a 3-minute break.
3 minutes.
Okay, so now we're going to open the special meeting part of our agenda. And so first we have resolution 2324. And Malaysia is here to, yes, to us. Thank you.
Yeah, so in case you guys haven't met me before, my name is Malaysia Michaelis. I'm the interim director of the Haystack Rock Awareness Program. I'm taking over while Kelly's out on leave and for maternity leave. So, and bear with me, this is my first time doing it. So in August of fiscal year 2023-2024, Polaris Ranger Crew SP 570 UTV was successfully purchased, overcoming challenges posed by manufacturer delays. The UTV lacks essential accessories such as roof, doors, and a protective cover, which are essential in protecting and prolonging the UTV's longevity. Given the diverse functions the UTV is expected to fulfill, our goal is to guarantee its reliable performance over the years. The UTV is currently being stored in the Cannon Beach Elementary School gym. The goal is to have these items purchased and installed before the start of our next season. The UTV was purchased to advance our conservation and education efforts in several ways, including providing accessibility for physically disabled volunteers, allowing us to have efficient resource management, allowing us to conduct wildlife rescue and monitoring, and also act as a spare vehicle. No additional funds were designated within the fiscal year of 2023-2024 budget for additional purchases related to the UTV. We are requesting a budget adjustment that includes a capital outlay of $7,779.96 to complete the purchase of additional accessories needed for the UTV.
Have to say delivered like a veteran.
No, you did better because you spoke faster and.
I appreciated
And you did.
Yeah.
Do that when I'm nervous.
Yes, and you didn't read us the whole.
Right.
So good job.
Thank you.
We can use her for training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, well, no. Okay,
Or the
so
chamber.
does anybody have any, does anybody have any questions?
We talked about this before.
Yeah.
So we're taking, we're moving $8,000 from the non-departmental contingency to executive, and that's where the money for this will come out.
Yes.
Okay.
Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
Certainly am. I move to adopt resolution 2324 for the purpose of approving changes to the fiscal year 23-24 budget by increasing appropriations in the general fund to allow for a capital outlay for the purchase of a roof, doors, and a cover for the UTV.
And I second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Crooner.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Done. Good job.
Well did.
Maybe not 10 o'clock, maybe 9:30.
Okay, next.
Malaysia, do all of them.
Yeah. Okay, Karen. Okay, next we have resolution 2325. And Karen is here.
I was gonna follow Jason's hysterical comment earlier about the age of his assets. I'd say our infrastructure is about the age of me, but somehow that's not quite as funny.
Especially since you have a birthday approaching.
Phase one, which includes the seismic improvements of the water resiliency project, is funded by a favorable term loan from Business Oregon. With consulting engineering firm Windsor Engineers, we estimated the project's value at $589,370. The city advertised an invitation to bid on the construction element of this phase beginning in late July of 23. The city received 2 bids on September 13th of 2023. Both bids were in significant excess of the engineer's opinion of probable cost for the project. The city rebid the project on November 29th, 2023. 5 bids were received. And the apparent low bidder is Halme Excavating Incorporated from Battleground, Washington, with a bid amount of $663,480. In accordance with the city ordinance, the city council must authorize contract awards for construction projects of this dollar amount. While the apparent low bidder is significantly lower than the initial bid, additional funds are needed to complete the project. After researching options for additional funding, staff determined the best course of action would be to transfer from the water reserve contingency. It is expected that the project will be completed by October 31st of 2024. And staff recommends that council authorize staff to award the contract to Halme Excavating Incorporated and adopt resolution 23-25 to transfer funds from the water contingents.
Karen?
Yes.
So Windsor Engineers was our consultants for this project, right?
That is the engineering firm that won the original bid for who we would award the engineering, design and engineering phase of the project.
Well, has Windsor approved the award to, or have they seen this award or the low bidders bid? Have they looked at it and said that it looked good to them? Have they approved it?
Yes, we worked together when we put the initial bid out and we got the results that we did. Our teams got together and said, what can we do to readdress the time frame that we put in the bid? Because that was feedback that we got from the contractors. We each contacted the contractors and asked for the feedback. Some of them that didn't come to the table and bid at all. And others, as you saw, the original pricing was just exorbitant. And a lot of it had to do with the tight time frame. They just couldn't pull it off without making some significant changes that cost them money to do so. The other was some of the scope that they felt that if the city could take on, that it would help reduce some of the costs. That was very minimal, to be honest with you, but we looked at all of it before we put the RFP out the second time, because to repeat the same exact thing, we were concerned we'd get the same results. So yes, both teams looked at it. both teams agreed that we had done everything we could do to put the second RFP out as tight as we possibly could and extend the timeline as far as we possibly could, knowing that we've got phase 2 coming up on us, you know. So once this came back, although it was more than what we were hoping it would be, it wasn't significant. And we considered a couple of things. One being going back to Business Oregon and asking to increase our loan, which was the last thing that we wanted to do right out of the gate. And obviously, secondly, was to see if we had the money within the budget to be able to absorb that. And the team felt that the city team felt that was the right thing to do. We didn't give Windsor a vote on that. But so yes, it pretty much points to the fact that this is what the market bears right now. This is what we're going to deal with. And I keep reminding our team how long ago we started this project. And when we made these estimates, we gave a very healthy contingency for knowing that it could take us quite some time before we actually pulled the trigger to execution.
Okay.
But even with that, between materials and labor and things that we're seeing just in the general market on RFPs, this is where we are.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
Any other questions?
I'll move to approve the contract award to Halme Excavating Inc. for the Water Resiliency Phase 1 Seismic Valve Project and adopt Resolution 23-25 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Jennifer.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yeah.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so
Next one.
we have resolution 2326.
Okay. And this one we've discussed before. As the council is aware, the city is in the process of acquiring property in preparation for 2 critical projects. The staff report is to support the need for these projects and the need for the city to acquire these properties. The first one, the presidential outfalls. OPRD is requiring the city to remove the 5 storm drain outfalls that run from Ocean Avenue to the ocean shore between Washington and Harrison Streets. There are 3 tax lots along the beach that are between the city right-of-way and the OPRD ocean shore property that must be crossed to perform the work OPRD is mandating. The city has tried repeatedly to contact the owners of the lots through various means without success. At this point, because these properties are critical for this project, the city wants to ensure that all proper steps have been taken under the state law to allow the city to condemn the properties if necessary. As such, staff has prepared a resolution of necessity to obtain the 3 legal lots. The attached Exhibit A is the resolution of necessity and associated documents for this specific project action. Second one, Haystack Heights Water System Loop. City is attempting to secure a property easement on tax lot 333 in the Haystack Heights neighborhood that is critical to achieving the looping of our water infrastructure in this area. This is a city master plan project that is critical to replacing an aging water line, adding a fire hydrant, and improving the fire protection capabilities for this entire neighborhood as requested by the local Cannon Beach Rural Fire District. The city is unable to accomplish this project without securing a permanent and temporary construction easement. As such, staff has prepared a resolution of necessity to obtain the easements and to ensure that all proper steps have been taken under the state law to allow the city to condemn the property interest if necessary. The attached Exhibit B is the resolution and associated documents for this project and actions. Staff is seeking council approval of the resolutions to move forward with the projects.
And I have a question because I don't understand. I mean, for this process, obviously I don't, because I'm curious why there's no, we talked about a cap And that's never mentioned in there, in this. When we approve this, are we approving it without a cap?
So as I understand it, and I'm with you, Lisa, I've had to learn the legal aspects of this process. Our first desire was to get let's talk project specific. So for the presidentials, because we haven't been able to reach those folks, if we're going to go forward with condemnation, the resolution of necessity is a phase of the process that has to come before you before the attorney can proceed.
Okay.
And so on Haystack Heights, the desire there is to achieve the easement. And if the property owner for some reason declines to grant us that easement, then this is a part of the process that is necessary for us to condemn that section that the easement involves, just like we would with the presidentials.
No financial measures will be taken until they are approved by council.
Exactly. Mhm.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
On the presidential outfalls, we are condemning the property outright, not going for a utility easement.
We have not been able to, reach the owners to even engage in that discussion. The written documentation making that proposal has been, executed multiple times with no response. And so this is the only other logical step.
Is there an option of condemning the properties outright and condemnation for utility easement?
Well, if we condemn the property, then we would own it. And so, again, I'm not an attorney and I don't want to speak for Heather, but it's my understanding that then the utility easement is not necessary because we are the owners. And so we would have control.
What we're approving here is to actually condemn the properties.
Yes.
I heard back from them, so we're condemning the properties.
Yes.
I believe it's possible that if there was a discussion of an easement come, as a result of that.
Okay.
But we've not gotten a response. This will get a response.
But it's an easement up on Haystack Heights.
Yes.
Is what we're seeking first.
Any other questions?
The easement on Haystack Heights, would that allow the property owners to do or not to do? What would they be prohibited from doing if we have an easement?
That's a good question. So based on the 15-foot easement that we've requested, there shouldn't really be a change for the owners in that. They can still build something on that property because of the setbacks and things like that. They wouldn't be able to utilize that space anyway. It would be part of the setback technically, depending on what their house plans were. But they can still put a structure on that property. It doesn't make the property unbuildable. But if they were to submit a plan that required them to ask for some sort of a variance, then it could impact that easement area. And obviously we would deny that. We wouldn't something over the top of our force main going through there. And so that's a consideration for them when they're looking at this.
Okay, but they could still build with the proper setbacks and everything.
Absolutely. That's what made this lot more attractive because it doesn't hurt the property owner per se. The other lot we were considering, it would have impacted them significantly. That was the desire to actually purchase it. So then, we're made whole, so to speak. So this really was, it was a win-win for everybody.
Does it increase any kind of danger to a house being built on the property that main is underneath it? That wouldn't make any difference?
We have a force main on Tanana is a good example. That's right alongside of a house.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? So one takes two different motions.
I'll move to adopt resolution 23-26. Resolution declaring the need to acquire certain real property for drainage project.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
Karen, that's going to solve, this project is going to solve the problem of the trenching out of some of those drains. Is that
As far as Haystack Heights or presidential?
presidential?
It will,
Now
absolutely.
we get those canyons that are eroded, and that's going to solve it.
Because that whole redesign won't even exist there. Eventually, we're gonna do it in phases. You know, the last storm we had was a really good example of if we got too aggressive with this, trying to do all of them at once, we could really have found ourselves in a terrible situation last week. So that's why we proposed to do one at a time, go through an entire winter season and see how that design proves itself, and then progress with the other drains one at a time.
And once you condemn the property, it will be determined by a judge how much property is worth and how much the city has to pay for.
We have to provide an appraisal and show and present that when we go forward to the judge. Yes.
It seems like that appraisal was pretty reasonable since it's unbuildable.
Okay. Another
Thank you.
motion? Did we even vote on both of them?
Yeah, we have a second.
Yeah, we still need the second one.
Move to adopt resolution 2327. A resolution declaring the need to acquire certain property for water utility improvements for a looped water system.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. So before you go, I'd like to thank your school for everything they did last week.
Thank you. Yep, they worked really hard.
Oof, yeah,
Thank you.
last week and the week before, and yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen.
Karen.
Okay. Steve, wake up. It's your turn.
Rested.
They were,
We heard you snoring. Yeah.
gave up apparently.
Still from out here even, probably would have too.
Okay, so first we have the tree removal permit.
Sound good?
Yep.
All right, thanks, Mayor and Council. So as you can recall, at the last meeting, we had an appeal application from Jay Orloff of Tolavana Architects on behalf of Paul White to construct a new home and an ADU that was denied by the Design Review Board. They appealed that application to council. Council rendered a decision to approve with conditions. One of the conditions was the hope to maintain the 50-inch Sitka spruce that's located, where it would be located is in the front yard. We, as the council, on the, I believe it was the November 14th meeting, there was discussion about the tree and whether or not the city arborist had looked specifically at the 50-inch Sitka spruce. Staff had indicated in an August letter that Jeff Gearhart had looked at all of the trees and not specifically at the 50-inch tree. Based on that, the council decided to table the matter because they wanted the city arborist to look specifically at the 50-inch Sitka. You had provided me with a number of questions to pose to Mr. Gearhart to have him review. I can go through those if you'd like me to and go through his answers. Otherwise, if you guys are good, I don't have to read that, but that was the request. So if you'd like, I can. If you have read it, I'm totally good. I know it's been a long meeting already.
I read it.
I read it.
So basically, I'm bringing back the information you requested and Mr. Gearhart's report.
Anybody need him to go over it?
Nope.
So do we have time to go with his recommendations? Get another opinion from the arborist that he
Yeah.
suggested?
Do we have time in the appeal period, the 120 days?
We have, the attorney on. I don't know if Carrie's on, if she might be able to, but I think one of the things was there was a formal decision made on the appeal, and this was just a condition that needed to be satisfied. So I'm thinking we're okay on that, but I don't know if Carrie might have any input. I didn't have an opportunity to speak to Carrie about this matter. But I don't know if she'd have any input. But I felt comfortable because the council had rendered a decision, they made findings, and there was a condition of approval that needed to be met prior to issuance of building permits.
So does that mean the building permits haven't been issued yet, have they?
That's correct.
Carrie's there, so.
Carrie's there, so to ask her. Hi, Carrie.
So I haven't been involved in this matter directly, but my understanding is that the findings are before you for adoption, right? The ask is for you to approve the application.
Could I clear that up? Yeah. Mayor, real quick. So the findings have been adopted. And they were adopted with a condition that the applicant bring back a specific tree request back to the council. So findings were done that approved the request with a condition of approval. And basically what we're discussing this evening is the condition of approval that was part of those findings.
So this satisfies the condition, Steve.
This is a discussion that the council is going to act on to either grant the tree removal permit or deny the tree removal permit. And yes, it was a condition that the council approved when they approved the ADU.
Clear as mud.
Well,
Well,
so
I mean, I don't,
is approval potential with another condition?
I think at this point in time, you made the condition. There's the arborist report that it sounds like you might be discussing, and that was one of the things that was suggested by the city arborist. So I guess we would be looking for another arborist to continue this discussion.
well, Jeff Gearhart recommended a particular arborist to look at the root system, but his letter said that the tree was viable. He saw it as long-term viable and short-term viable. Of course, he can't predict the future, but that was his professional recommendation.
Has a dense and healthy
so-
canopy and the ability to remain viable long-term.
And there's a way to trim it. I love that name, the something sail.
Sail, yeah.
Trim it to make it, withstand winds better. And so I think that, the tree needs to be kept.
And his other comment was, despite the challenges in safely retaining this tree, it is worth pursuing.
Yep. So I would, it's my position that the tree needs to be kept. Now, I suppose, I don't know if the applicant wanted it to continue it to get the
Other opinion.
advice of the root specialist from Lake Oswego. I'm not really sure how that works, but
Or appeal our decision.
Hmm?
Or appeal our decision.
to, you mean to,
And that would be up to those guys, I mean, to make that decision in terms of how they want to proceed. So really, the council can either grant the tree removal permit or deny it. And then, just so you know, after that, then we would issue the building permit and they would still have to submit the tree permit removal for the rest of the trees that are on the site.
including that tree.
That tree would not be included because council asked for this condition and you would be acting on this specific one
Okay.
this evening.
Well, then I move to deny the removal of that tree.
There's a second.
Is that the proper,
I didn't read anything, but
We could be more specific, moving to,
S1, wasn't it?
Yes.
I move to deny the removal of S1 from the White property. You want me to say it? Is there something you want me to read? Just
It might not be bad under the decision and conditions. There's a section that in about the third sentence that talks about the tree removal permit for the 50-inch Sitka spruce S1 at tax lot 0600. So it might be worthwhile just taking a look at and then making a motion with that.
having considered the evidence in the record based,
yeah, you have to start about halfway through.
okay, I move to
Yep.
deny the tree removal permit for the 50-foot Sitka spruce S1 at tax lot 00600 with regards to the Paul White accessory dwelling unit appeal 23-06 as discussed.
There a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Only that it's 50-inch Sitka spruce.
Yeah.
Thought it was 60-inch.
I said 50 foot.
Yeah.
Oh, 50-inch, right, 50 inch, well, that would be.
50
big
feet.
to be.
50,
I have inches in the motion.
50 inch.
Okay,
Okay,
Brendan, do you have any thoughts about this?
4 feet around.
You think,
He seconded
he
it.
seconded.
yeah,
We're in the,
I know.
we're in the discussion.
I was thinking about seconding it just to discussion and see if
We
anybody.
do have a person, I believe it's the homeowner with his hand raised. So we probably should allow him to speak. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. Yes, this is Paul. Thank you. So I'm looking at one of your provisions, 17.70.010 purpose. And it says the purpose of this chapter is to establish protective regulations for the trees within the city, yada, yada, yada. Item B, the intent is not to prohibit the removal of trees completely or to require extraordinary measures to build structures. Rather, the intent is to stop wanton tree destruction. So my question is, if we save that tree, and the opinions are pretty clear that it may not be stable, and most likely with winds from either the south or from the east, it would fall north or it would fall west. Will the city assume the liability for the safety of that tree as it relates to my neighbors and their welfare?
Well, Jeff Gearhart, the city arborist, did not say that it was going to fall over. He said that it actually was viable.
Lisa, let's be clear. Let's be clear. There's been numerous opinions on this tree, and the bottom line is nobody wants to take responsibility. He has purposely deferred his opinion to somebody else for liability. So my question is to you, as the city council, will you take liability? And if you will take liability for that tree and its potential danger that it creates for this neighborhood, then I'm happy to leave it there. Otherwise, I think it is a total disregard for the safety and concern of the citizens, especially my neighbors of Cannon Beach. And as Peter Lindsley testified, my neighbor to the east said, during big storm winds, he personally leaves his house out of fear that another branch or tree may fall upon his house, which apparently it did years ago. So I think the peril, that potential is there. I don't know why the city council is digging its feet in on one tree that's going to create a problem. And it's not within the consideration or the intent of the law or the ordinance.
Well, I disagree with you there. I think it is within the intent of the ordinance.
How so, Lisa? Tell me how it is.
Because it's an old, large tree, very large tree, and our city arborist, I mean, every house in this town that has trees near it is always in danger of having a tree fall on it. I sleep downstairs when there's a big windstorm in my house because I'm afraid I have all these big trees right around me and I'm afraid one could fall. Any tree could fall. I mean, it happens all the time. So No, but did
So
get
Lisa,
the city
Lisa,
arborists to-
why continue to create a potential hazard or potentially a life-threatening situation for a neighbor? I'm gonna replant trees. I like trees as much as you do. These trees have never been taken care of. These are not pristine trees. These are scrap trees on a piece of property that everybody knew at some point in time would be built on. And I don't know why at this point in time, you're digging your feet in for something that is not really relevant to what the city council's charter is.
Because I don't think it's a scrap tree. I think it's a big, beautiful tree. And I think that the decision to
Lisa,
not.
that's your personal opinion. You don't own the
Not gonna let
property.
me finish
I
this
do.
sentence. Well,
What happened to property
of
rights in this town? What happened to property rights in this town? I'm gonna replant trees. I'm taking care of the property. I'm doing what's right in the interest of the neighborhood. And for you to dig your heels in one tree, I think is totally selfish and irresponsible on your behalf as a city council person.
well, you're entitled to your opinion.
And you are too, obviously, but I don't know why yours is more important than mine as the owner of that property.
Okay. We also have a hand up from Jay. Jay, would you like to speak?
Yes, I've read through the opinion as well, but I think there's a few things that need to be pointed out. And first is answer to question number 1. The excavation work as proposed will negatively impact over 50% of the tree's critical root zone. Anchoring roots vital to this tree stability will be severed or damaged to some degree. The second point is answer to question number 2 in regards to the root structure connected to other trees. And he notes removing the adjacent trees and subsequently removing the stumps will weaken the root structure of S1, the tree in question. And I think, we also have to take in consideration that there's going to be a 30-ton excavator running across 50% of the root zone. In addition, there's going to also be a 30-ton dump truck running over this root zone. And I think that has to be taken in consideration rather than just cherry picking the best stuff out of Jeff Gearhart's report here. And he is making notes of damage to the root structure and potentially, even though he's not calling out directly that it's going to kill it, but there is a possibility. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. I think that's what Paul is concerned with, is the liability of it. You are saying that we have to keep this tree. So is there going to be some liability responsible by the city for making that decision?
No. There isn't.
I think that's.
City
gonna
doesn't
open up
assume
for a lawsuit.
liability for a tree falling on someone's house on private property.
Could we get a discussion by Carrie about that?
You're muted, Carrie.
Need to unmute.
I don't know enough about this application to weigh in on this question. My only recommendation is that it's really not the role, I think, of the council to have a discussion with parties with respect to their testimony. I think they can make testimony and the council can accept it. The council can follow up with questions, but we probably need not engage in an argument over liability. I certainly am not qualified to weigh in on that question tonight.
And I just want.
I apologize for that.
Okay, I wanted just to give them a chance to say what they needed to say. So that's why
I have a question in terms of, say they do take extreme care to take care of this tree during construction, but it does die and not necessarily destroy anything, but it does die. Are they liable for any kind of fine or violation or anything like that? Would they be?
I think there's discussion of a hazardous tree and things like that that would take place as far as the ordinance, but there's nothing that specifically says because this happened or that happened that I'm aware of that we would be able to do much other than they would have to go through the tree removal process that is provided by the ordinance.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to ask if the applicant is interested in this other opinion?
Yes, I think it would be appropriate to ask if they're willing to, to defer the council's decision to obtain this other opinion.
So asked.
The wrong one.
Mr. White?
As you all know, I've been going through this process since August. We have had, I think it's 4, 5, or 6 different opinions, are all pretty similar, where the bottom line is there's no guarantee this tree is going to make it. Like it or, like it or not, it's not going to make it. And to continue on this path where nobody wants to take liability. And when the city arborist says, I want to defer to somebody else because I don't want to be responsible for that tree falling or that tree dying or something happening. And now the city council trying to kick the can down the street. You guys have cost me time, money, and I can't believe the emotional expense is taken on me and my family and what it's related to how it relates to my neighbors as well. I mean, I don't understand it. What happened to property rights? I bought this lot intending to build a house. And
So
I have
is
been
that
thwarted
no?
at every turn. I've been thwarted at every turn. So
Mr. White, are you saying no to the question?
I'm not sure we're going to gain anything else from it, Mayor. There's nothing else I think we can gain. We've had 5 different opinions. So yeah, I'm basically saying no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I will note that when, we did have, my recollection of the testimony of the neighbor was 2 very opposite things that were said by him. When he came in here to testify in front of the council, he said that, with all the trees cut down on the lot, he's afraid of the remaining trees falling on his house, which is different than what he'd said at the meeting. So I'm not really sure.
Are you talking about Peter?
Yeah. When Peter testified in front of us, it sounded to me as if he was saying, with all these trees being cut down, he's afraid of any remaining trees, like the ones on the back of the lot falling towards his house. So he didn't testify in favor of cutting down all the trees. He was testifying that he was nervous about trees in general falling on his house, as most of us are.
Okay, any further discussion? So we have a motion and a second.
You have any thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I did second the motion in order to advance the discussion, but I'm involved in the construction industry. I know what needs to happen in order for this project to proceed. And I do not believe that the tree would have the best chance of success. And therefore I cannot vote in favor of this motion.
Well, we asked for Jeff Gerhardt's opinion. He gave us his opinion. And he said he thought that the tree was a candidate for survival. And it says it right there. So you're either going to accept that. You know, he's not willing to guarantee it with his life, but he did.
I think far from it, Lisa.
Well, let's find his letter here and read through it because we had a little part of it through.
Does say despite the challenges in safely retaining the tree, it is worth pursuing.
I think that's probably the most important sentence.
Yeah.
In his whole letter.
Yeah. So
We asked for his opinion.
we got it. And he thought it was worth pursuing to try and keep the tree.
So yeah, I don't know if the appeal process is easier than a continuance for a second opinion, but well.
So I guess my question is, what is he kind of outlines the process for protecting the tree, but how can the city be assured that protection will occur?
that's gonna be on the applicant to, you've made the decision and then it's gonna be up to the applicant to do what's necessary to have this tree survive. You know, the tree protection zones, different things like that are involved in it. So they'll have to do what's necessary as far as fencing and construction and signage and things like that. So those are the requirements of the ordinance.
Will they be monitored at all in terms of that?
As far as a little bit through the construction, as far as when building inspector goes out there for the different things, and so we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Anything else anybody wants to say? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Ogilvy,
No.
Council President McCarthy,
I'm really on the fence on this one. I'll say yes.
Counselor Hayes,
I'll say yes too.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is approval of findings of fact for DRB 2319.
Right, so the December 5th meeting, council heard for the Cannon Beach Elementary School and had made a decision to approve with conditions the rejuvenation of the elementary school and directed staff to provide findings to you in support of that decision. Along with that, there's 2 conditions that we discussed, and so staff was recommending that the findings be adopted.
Okay, I have a couple of things on the findings.
Okay.
There's not page numbers on mine, so I'm not sure how to direct you to it.
Okay.
But it's, let's see, 1, 2, it's finding number 1, 2, it's the 4th finding. It starts with the Cannon Beach Elementary Rejuvenation Project is an adapted reuse project aimed.
What,
Okay.
do you know?
That would be, it looks like page. Yeah,
It's the 4th page of this packet that is not numbered. And I would say, where, in the line where it says a Coos Park site for use by Cannon Beach visitors, residents, and local businesses as a cultural and ecological interpretive center capable of hosting a variety of tourism and community events and public recreation. I would add and community events into that. Instead of just saying a variety of tourism-related events and public recreation, I would say a variety of tourism-related and community-related events, or however you want to put that in there. But I would put that word, community events, in there in the most grammatical way possible.
That's a great idea.
Okay, and then there's, one other thing, and this is easy because it's right, it's under before the city council of the city of Cannon Beach. And it's the very last page matter of the appeal. So it's findings and conclusions, Act 2307. On the back page of that, right above the signature from the mayor, says the city council hereby orders that the proposed adapted reuse of the former Cannon Beach Elementary School is approved. It wasn't a reuse, it was a redesign. We didn't, the design review board did not discuss use. That wasn't in their purview. Design was in their purview. So instead of reuse, it should say redesign. That's all.
that looks like that's in the orders. So we had the findings of fact, and then at the very end, there's a document that says before City Council of the Cannon Beach, and it's the that go along with this, with the findings. So it's at the very end on the last page. There's the mayor's signature line, and then in capital letters, there's it's the second paragraph on that last page that says the city council hereby orders. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with what so
proposed to
change that from read that.
Fine.
Yeah.
And I think there's a typo on the other side of that same page where it says community interests. It's 1, 2, 3, fourth line down, last word in the matter of an appeal.
Okay.
Fine, yeah. Right here. See, it's on that same page.
Okay,
Interest.
okay. Oh.
While we're making amendments, let's do the one on condition 1. The applicant shall submit a revised landscaping plan and in that sentence, deleting complete with the signage.
Right.
Right. That's the one that Stephen.
Other modifications, questions, discussions?
I will move to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law for the appeal of DRB 2319 as amended.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Counselor Ogletree.
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Thank you to everyone that helped with the findings, getting it all together. Okay,
Thanks, Carrie.
thank you, Carrie. So next we have. Right? Or is it just wishful thinking that it's good in the order?
Well,
Okay,
should I? Okay, well, the tree ordinance has been working really hard.
focus group.
Focus group has been working on rewriting the tree ordinance or amending the tree ordinance. We have met with staff, which was incredibly helpful. Robert and Steve and Karen, all were very helpful and had great suggestions, and it was, and Trevor, and we've met with them, I think, twice to see about how, if what we are proposing can be implemented by them, whether it was practical as far as they were concerned. And so we made some adjustments that we think reflect what they have suggested to us. Some of them were great suggestions. And now we'd like to have Bill look at it to make sure that it is Bill Kobayasman, our city land use attorney, look at it to make sure that there is no thing that we're missing legally. It's not nearly as complicated as looking at something like a wetlands ordinance, which, is a huge overlay zone and has a lot more, has state action in it as well, which is what makes it so complicated. So this shouldn't be, I'd be surprised if there's anything in it that has any kind of legal ramifications, because there's no takings, there's no, requirements of, you can't build a house, that kind of thing. So I'd like the permission. I guess our ordinance says that anything that takes more than an hour has to either go through Bruce or the council. And I don't think, I can't speak for Bill how long it would take him to read through it, maybe a couple hours. But I'd like authorization for him to look at it and give his opinion as to the legality of it before it comes to council, planning commission, and parks, which is where next it will go to parks after Bill. And after parks, it'll come to the whole, everybody.
When does the public hearings happen on that?
Public hearing happens after it comes to everybody and wait to weigh in here, then there's a public hearing.
And does the complete audit committee, the 3 committees, look at it first before the public hearing?
Yeah. Right, to see if they think that there's a problem with it or whatever. Steve?
Just from a procedural standpoint, it's very similar to kind of what we're doing with the wetlands and the reorg that we're going to be doing. We have to send anytime you're amending the zoning ordinance, you have to send a 35-day notice to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, the PAPA notice. Then once that occurred, after the information you spoke of the different committees, once everyone's good with it, then what would happen is it will go, any type of zoning amendment will go to Plan Commission first through a hearing. And then they will make a recommendation to council, and there'll be a hearing before council, and when council considers it for adoption. So it sounds to me like the idea is get it to Bill, have him review it, have the committees kind of okay it, and then move forward from there. And I'm assuming you'd like probably staff to push it on through at that point in time.
Certainly not us.
So when does it go to the state? You said it goes to the state?
Yeah, anytime. So before the first evidentiary hearing, we have to send a specific notice to the State Department of Land Conservation. And anytime you do an amendment to your zoning ordinance or map, there's certain notice requirements that has to go to the state. You have to have that notice, that 35 days of notice has to occur before the first evidentiary hearing before the Plan Commission.
And it's just so that everybody, all interested parties know that it's coming. And so they can weigh in at a public hearing.
The state doesn't have to look at it like it did with the wetlands.
Weigh in.
They'll look at it similarly, and they can comment or not say anything at all. It's just a matter of that you have to provide that notice to the state agency.
EC analysis at all.
No, not in this case.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
You mentioned the term zoning. Were you using that as just an example?
It is the tree section is in the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So anytime we're doing a legislative type action, meaning a change to the text of the zoning ordinance, that's when it kicks in.
Yeah, the reason we're having the discussion at this meeting is that the way the code reads is that a counselor can ask the attorney for an opinion, legal opinion. If the time would take less than an hour. If it's more than an hour, then it either goes to city manager who says, you know, whatever it takes will do, or it comes to the rest of the council. And I think that Councilor Kerr gave a great presentation, and that's just what I wanted to see, rather than say, well, it's going to take more than an hour. And I think everybody's acknowledging probably after we just had this discussion, probably will take more than an hour. And I just think that that's something that it should be a council decision, especially when it's something that's going to be involving other boards and things like that, that I was not comfortable making that decision to say, well, we can go ahead and go on this process and tie it to a legal opinion. So that's why we're having the discussion now. And that was my discussion with Councilor Kerr.
So do we put a cap on it? They'll say not to exceed a certain number of hours, like read it quicker?
I think, I think, yeah, that's what you're asking.
Peter.
I think if you put your toe in your water and you're in. I mean,
Okay,
I don't know how many hours. I don't know what other kind of things might come out of it. And I have no reason to think that this will be an excessive amount of hours, but it's more than one.
okay.
And also it's something that the council is aware of, but has not necessarily been involved with to the degree that Councilor Kerr has been.
Okay.
So I just thought it was good to come to the board, the council.
Well, I think we should look at it as any other business when we're crafting. We need to do this in order for it to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm not. I totally agree.
Okay.
And I think, it would be worthwhile just having Bill take a look at it from the standpoint, if there's something to catch, it would be best to catch it early on instead of after we're starting, so we don't have to amend that or, try to get it all set when it comes to everyone.
Yeah. And I applaud the efforts of the focus group. I know they have met many, many times. So we really appreciate all of the work. Everybody okay with more than an hour?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else for good of the order?
Yes. I wanted to know what's going on with Sea Turtles Forever. Their money they want, it's dragging on since, I don't know.
But we're still
months
waiting for some things to be answered.
Yeah, back in September, council asked for some additional information and it is on our list of things to do, but there's been a lot of things that have been asked for. So we haven't been able to get through everything.
Well, have they,
I have been telling that
but have they provided what they're supposed to provide?
they provided information at their presentation.
Okay,
And so they provided that, but council wanted input from other specialists.
And that's what's taking time.
okay.
And also they're asking for reimbursement for something they were never authorized to do,
I know.
but and in the past, we have inspected the bags. And so we didn't know that the bags, they were doing the bags. They just put them over here and they assumed that because we said that they could, dispose of them in our dumpster, that we would know that they were the ones that they were going to try to claim the $10,000 on. So that gives me, some pause to say that, well, all right, I'll agree that you did $10,000 worth of work, and I have no idea that the work was done. I don't know how much of it was done. And so if council wants to direct, let's just go ahead and pay it and we'll be more explicit the next time, that's fine. But I don't have anything that I would pay another contractor based on the.
Okay, well, what specifically, can you tell me what you exactly need from them? The amount of hours that I thought they provided that, how many hours they worked, how many people worked, who those people were. I thought that information was provided.
I don't know if it was provided, but they were never given authorization to do any work. They took it on themselves to do that work.
They provided what you asked for. Council asked for more information, not from them, but from other experts.
Yeah.
And so that's what we need to do.
So, but if you want us to pay them, we can go ahead and pay them. But again, any other contractor, I would say, no, you're gonna have to prove that, you were authorized or that this is, you either pave that road or you didn't pave that road. We don't have any of that from them. This was just something they knew that they did not have the work authorized to them.
Did we agree as a budget committee to keep them as a line item or to put them on as a line item? I mean,
We didn't put them on as a specific, it's generic. I mean, like,
Microplastics.
yeah, we did not identify a nonprofit that was going to be.
Okay, it was just the generic cleaning plastic off the beach, but not signing it to a particular entity to do it.
Right.
This is that with the additional information we wanted, and the only additional information we needed was whether or not scientists see that it is beneficial or not beneficial to also pick up woody debris in the process. Plastic.
Definitely not it.
I'm sorry.
319.
Am I right?
There was, in general, yes, but it wasn't that if the people agreed that that it was good to pick up the woody material also, that we would go ahead and hire them. That was just a question before it would be done, that question would be answered. But we didn't say that, and to my knowledge, and maybe I misunderstood it, that if what they see, and there was a difference of opinion on whether or not to pick it up. And the information that I thought I brought to council was that if they stayed away from the rack line, the most recent rack line, because once it dries out, it's a different quality than what it is when it's wet. That picking up the woody debris was not taking out that much habitat. That was different than,
yeah.
they took it on themselves to authorize the work.
When did they do the work?
Last summer.
I know, but when in last summer? Was that before or after we had the budget hearings and we adopted the budget?
After.
Was after we adopted the budget?
Yeah, they hired a bunch of, or not a bunch, but they hired several people, young people who live here in town to do the work. I actually, know one of the fellows who was hired.
But
Students. For some.
Authorize the cleaning of the beach. We didn't authorize them to do it, but they went ahead and did the work. Was that basically what the problem is?
They had done it in the past.
Well, they had done it in the past, but we didn't authorize specifically authorize them to do it for this
You
budget?
have the answer, what we asked for?
So, Knob said, do you have directions? St. Dennis replied, I'll get some answers to what the other coastal agencies are doing for removal, the size of the grain or the sift size. If anyone else if anyone else is providing funds, if anyone else is working for other agencies, we'll contact agencies and, seems to be, yeah, we'll get back, we'll find out like how they're doing it. And then Barb replied, not really. We will discuss this at budget time if it should be a line item or sticking up for the next year. But for this year, we needed seeing on whether or not we were gonna give them the funds or not.
Whether or not and that was the size of the sifting, whether other jurisdictions use the same process.
The size of the sifting, what they do, if they're giving, there's multiple fundings, if there's multiple people providing funds. And I do promise it's on the list, but it's just one of those things we haven't gotten to yet.
Okay, I would, can we move it up and because I just feel really badly that we're just sort of leaving them hanging in the wind and not getting these.
He was aware of the situation when that request was made back in September. He was on Zoom when you guys requested that. So he has been told what the process is. And I have let him know that we had something we're doing and we will be moving forward it. And when it goes back to council, we would let him know so that way he can attend virtually as well.
Okay. Do we have any timeline?
I mean,
It's tough.
If council wants us to pay him for this time, I mean, I would say we could do that, but I don't know if it's gonna make a difference to you if we say that half of the people that we talked to said, just leave the woody debris alone, and the other half says, no, it's good to go ahead and clean it up. I don't know what that's gonna change. But because really, I think we're down to somebody has done this work and is asking for repayment on it. And I can't tell you that the work was done, and I can't tell you what the value was on what we got. But if it's something that local people were involved with and, some other considerations, we can do that. But I don't know.
Do they have evidence that they picked?
The only evidence we would have had was the bags.
I have them.
What's the bags?
The bag?
No, from this time? Was it from this time or the last time?
Last 2 times.
You have
Yeah, but not
bags
this time.
filled with stuff somewhere in City Hall or
Her desk.
Huh?
Oh, Jen, they're not the ones that they did this time.
No, they're the last 2 times they dumped them.
Previous.
Previous, not this year.
This year's.
Yeah.
Last 2 times they put debris in our dumpster. I took the bags out.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that we had those.
Yeah.
Harry Mason.
How big are the bags?
Jan, go get them or dump them out.
I mean, I can bring in one of the people who worked all summer long, busted his ass doing this work, and he could testify to you what he did, if you want to hear that.
Yeah, but the question is whether it was authorized to do it or not. That's the
Right.
problem.
If we had put as a line item, Sea Turtles Forever, $10,000. We put in marine debris removal or something, like that. Microplastic removal, I think is what we.
Which is what they do.
Which is what they do, but we did not authorize them to do that work.
What are they asking for? Are they asking for the total amount that we budgeted? Or are they
Because they
asking for
did-
some amount based on what they've done, even though they weren't authorized to do it?
They're asking for the 10,000 in my understanding.
That's my understanding too.
But that's something we need to find out exactly how much they're asking for. But if we,
They could give us an invoice.
yes,
They could, but they're the ones that came up with the $10,000 line item amount. That's what they initially asked for. That's what we
Right.
came up with 10,000.
right.
And they did in previous years.
Yes.
We are going to have a lot, I think, at budget time, we're going to have other nonprofits that want to become line items instead of going through our established community grant program.
Yeah.
And
Well, that maybe maybe in the future, they do have to do a community grant.
Well, that's what we've been telling them for 2 years.
But this time we did, there's a line item in the budget for microplastic cleanup. We did it. So I understand why they thought that.
But we didn't put sea turtles. for
I
that.
know, but they saw that line item. They're the ones that do microplastic. No one else does it. They're the ones that do it. So they figured that that was their green light to do it, and they hired.
Beginning of a project.
They were
And-
done this season.
Fred said that the reason they thought they were authorized was because we told him he could use the dumpster. He acknowledged that he was not told that he could move forward with it.
So officially what they've done, like years worth of work,
Yes.
they're the project total.
That's what they've requested.
Mhm.
I could go down to the beach and do some microplastic and charge the city because it's authorized in the budget, not authorized.
No, I'm not saying that it was a well-done, no, it was obviously a mess and a lot of misunderstandings. But the fact is that young people were hired, they cleaned up, they worked really hard and did it, filled bags with microplastic debris, and now, you know.
There's more than two.
Oh, there's more than two. So why don't we, ask them for an invoice.
Okay.
You send us photographic evidence of the bags.
Sorry, Bruce, I just grabbed him on a whim, so.
No, I know, but I know what we think, I mean,
And
I
then
found the bags before.
we put it on the,
Plastic is at the bottom and there was wood on top. It's lighter.
that we put it on our January work session agenda.
When I ask him for an invoice, do you want, what kind of document do you want me to give them? Like for the money that they're requesting, just leave it at that and then they give us the.
Yeah, invoice, how many people you hired, how many hours they worked, and what was their rate of pay? How much debris did they collect? Microplastic debris.
Rate of pay and how much collected. Okay.
Any other things you'd want to see on the invoice, anybody?
But
How many people
People,
hired,
the
rate of pay, how many hours, and how much collected?
So,
Much collected.
so the 5 Ws.
And where they did it,
Yeah.
being as the 5 Ws, where they did it.
Yeah, which beach, which parts of the beach they cleaned? Yeah, that, where? Where, what, how, who?
He said, did this young person get paid?
You know, I don't know, and I will ask.
They said that they paid out of their, their own funds for the
Sure.
organizational fund.
I think I would have heard about it if he hadn't gotten paid.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you
So the-
heard about it already.
Staff, the people that did it have been paid, was paid out of Sea Turtles funding
That's the way that I understand
and
it.
now Sea.
Ask them that too, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
now Sea
And
Turtles
ask
is
them
asking
if they did get paid, and if they did get paid, what was the funding source for the payment?
Yeah, because it, in a way that brings out the whole question. The kids were paid. So it's not that we're in debt to the kids. It's, if they didn't get authorized, we aren't necessarily responsible for
Yeah.
paying them.
That may be true, but it's a nonprofit that does really good work. If that.
But they
you know,
made some big assumptions.
They did,
They-
and
they were here for
they
the
did
budget.
not handle it well. I agree. And I think in the
and it
future, we've
isn't-
got to put the kibosh on that kind of way of doing
I
things.
thought we were trying to do that this year with how
Well,
we.
I didn't get that. I didn't read it that way.
did it.
I got my marching orders.
I love that you
Okay.
pulled the bags out there.
Anything else for good?
Yeah, I got one item, Mayor. I just noticed on item 9, it said DRB 2319. In the conditions and the decision, the correct application is 2307. So I just wanted to make sure that, I guess if we needed to, acknowledge that it says DRB 2319 when it should have been in the appeal 2307. Dustin and Rusty had caught that, but in the decisions and everything else, it says appeal number 2307. So it was just something that I wanted to mention while we're here, and I don't know.
Only place it is on the agenda.
I think the agenda is wrong is the only spot. We think everything else is correct.
Motion was correct.
So you have the DRB number and then you have my appeal number.
Right, and
And my appeal number is an appeal of DRB 2319.
2309.
Oh, 2309, got it, okay.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
So
is
Was the motion correct?
That's, yeah, exactly.
The motion is not correct because I wrote 19 and it should have been 09.
Watch.
Good catch by a.
Okay, we are still in a live meeting, so we can amend the motion to have the correct number.
I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get back up to.
And I think on this particular case, I think it would be a good move to do.
Okay.
This particular.
I mean, in anyone, but
Okay.
But now, just a sec, I have a question. On attachment A, the 2407 is different than the 23.
so there's the difference is there is
I would answer my
a
question.
design review board and then the appeal number.
Okay.
It gets a little confusing that way.
Yeah, and I typoed on the 19.
So where's the motion?
At the end of the findings of fact.
Well, it's actually the motion is at the end of the staff report. And that's where it says.
Oh, on the same page.
Yep.
Should we contact the attorney and ask how to correct this rather than just do another motion? Because I think that I make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's, and I'm not sure how to correct it.
Can't we just make an amendment to the motion? To the motion?
But the item is closed.
If you want, maybe what we could do is if we could do that and then include the changes that were discussed and bring it back with those amended changes that you requested.
Tomorrow night?
Do we have?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah, because
I don't think that there's anything that's pressing from a time period.
Well, and you really, you wouldn't need to vote anyways, because we voted tonight. It would just be for them to see that it's correct. Is that right?
I think it might be worthwhile just bringing it back and making sure we're right.
Okay, but that's the difference. Do you want to bring it back and make sure it's right, or do you want to bring it back and have them vote?
I think we bring it back and vote
Okay.
with the changes. As you requested the amendments, and then we'll bring it back with those and the right numbers. That's my bad, so I apologize for that.
So that would
Let's
be in
take-
January.
The attorneys tell us the process.
Okay.
So that would be in January. Is that within the time?
it shouldn't matter, right?
We still should have it done before, I believe, your meeting on the 9th. Isn't there early one in January, like January?
January 2nd.
Yeah, you can.
Because we could have that done.
And it won't matter because we're not gonna,
The time, there's no time cap for that. All right.
there is, but as
Just want to make
long as
sure.
we don't make the decision to pursue it forward.
See the motion.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I have the motion here.
Right.
It's wrong on
Uh,
it. You read.
mine was 2319.
Okay, just one right.
So I have that will go back to the December 2nd with the amended findings for
You mean January 2nd?
January. January.
Late.
And the only thing I have is that we have coffee with the counselors on Monday. I don't think there's anybody cares, but we have coffee with the counselors on Monday. Okay.
A meeting.
What do you last time?
At 6. 6 o'clock, but design review on planning, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And then the retreat starts at 11
O'clock on Thursday.
and we'll be done by
4,
Four.
because the Friends have the room at 5, so if we
Why
end at
at 5?
4, we can get cleaned up.
The fundraising committee meets.
Oh, right.
Okay, yeah, so 11 to 4 and then the following Tuesday, 11 till we're finished.
11 till 5 on the following Tuesday? Yeah. Okay, I can remember this.
Or if we get done early.
I was right. 10 o'clock is my prediction.
Well, let's not talk from.
Should have done a pool.
The meeting